And Trustee Sterling.
Here.
Thank you.
I guess we can note for the record that Trustee Corvallin not present. I think she may join later, but haven't heard that for sure. But if she does, we'll just try to note when she joins.
Thank you. Macy.
Thanks, Macy. So we've got a heavy consent agenda. There are 7 items on consent. I'm going to make sure we take time if needed to ask any clarifying questions on these. And Miranda will be the person to answer those. Do we have any? I have one quick one. I'm just looking to reference it, but does anyone else have any clarifying questions on these 7 items?
No, I don't.
Nope.
Okay. My only question, Miranda, is I know there was some confusion around that rights and nature guardian subcommittee, but I just want to make sure that the way it's written, specifically that Beaver Creek is not subject to our a watershed ordinance. Were we to ever do a watershed ordinance, because it's not 5 months, it's not contained in a watershed within 5 miles of where we take in water. But I did want to just make sure that wording clearly states that it does nonetheless affect Nederland because it flows right through it, and that these guardians are focused on that stretch of river as well.
Correct. Yeah. So they'll report on both streams, the North Beaver and Middle Boulder Creek. They'll monitor it and provide a health update and report. It's just that we don't have any regulatory authority over the Beaver Creek because it's not within the 5 miles of our intake site.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. But they'll keep us posted so we can notify people who do if there's a problem.
Correct. Yeah. And so, and we saw that occur, with some of the mining activity we did see before even rights of nature came into place, just kind of a desire to monitor that on behalf of the residents who have wells that are pulled off of that water stream. And then of course, recognizing that it does feed the reservoir. So we'll continue to team up with City of Boulder to do some of that watershed monitoring, as well as the Boulder Watershed Collective.
Perfect.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Ready for me?
Yep.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Mahol. Mayor Pro Tem Mahol.
Oh, you're on mute,
You're
Tom.
muted.
Yes. So I didn't
All
get
right.
the second either.
That was Trustee Sterling. Oh,
I
you were
know.
muted. I get it. All right. Thank you, Tom. Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yes.
Trustee Severs.
Yes.
Mayor Billy.
Yes.
And Trustee
Thank you.
Sterling.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks a bunch. And with that, we'll move to our next item.
Just right before we move forward, Billy, I just wanted to say thank you and congratulations to Town Administrator Fisher. I think that it's a rare moment in the town of Ned, where even though the board is not necessarily always in total agreement on the issues that face us, that there's a lot of unity behind the leadership of the town and its staff moving forward into the future. And we all have a lot of high hopes, high expectations, and a lot to be thankful for with the team that's in place. And a lot of that is due to Fisher's leadership. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Miranda, for everything, and town staff. And With that, we will turn to another member of town staff for our informational item about the 2024 regular municipal election update. Macy?
All right. So April 2nd of 2024 is our next regular municipal election. I'm pretty excited. I've already prepared the calendar and the nomination petitions have been released today. They are due by 6 p.m. on January 22nd. They can also be accessed on our website, but I do have hard copies available at Town Hall. So just running through the aim here is just like an update on the election timeline and what's going on. So the trustees with terms ending in April 24 are Mayor Billy, Trustee Coombs-Ismail, Trustee Severs, Trustee Sterling, and possibly and if appointed, the trustee who would fill the current vacancy. So again, that'll be determined. The applications for that are due on January 12th. And then you'll have an item on your meeting on January 16th to determine how to move forward with the vacancy. So you may have that seat too. And then I'm the current designated election official. You've approved a mail ballot election. And the deadline for absentee ballots, the written request for absentee ballots can be accepted as of tomorrow. So if anybody's looking for that, you can send me a request via email. And then registering to vote, you can do that online at the Boulder County election website, and you can do that now and then up until election day. There's no time limit, so make sure you're encouraging all your friends to register. And that's really all I have for you right now. Attached is the nomination petition for your review. And then do you guys have any questions about the process or the election so far?
No. So January 12th, applications are due, right?
Yes,
And
that's
by
correct.
the next, okay, and then by the next meeting, the 16th, we'll know who's applied.
Yes, that's correct. We've received one completed application and one application that's not entirely complete.
Cool.
And just a reminder too, next Tuesday on the 9th, we're going to hold that BOT orientation for any trustees who are applying for the vacancy. And I know some trustees here were interested in possibly attending that. We'll of course hold it hybrid, but we are expecting that the candidates who have applied would attend in person.
Got
And
it.
that's at 7:30 next Tuesday.
Thank you. Any more questions for Macy?
Hold on, Macy.
Well, yeah, thanks, Macy. I can switch back to this computer. Sorry, I'm having a little computer trauma. So the next thing is an action item on our 2024 budget adoption. Rita?
Yes, good evening, everyone, mayor, trustees, and members of the public. This is Rita. I'm the town treasurer, and tonight's action item is regarding considering the adoption of the 2024 budget. We've had several meetings discussing the 2024 budget. There was one small change since our last meeting on December 19th. I added $3,600 for the AI support, which only affected the general fund. Tonight is about taking that final step where you'll be adopting the 2024 budget. You have 4 resolutions before you tonight. The resolution to adopt the 2024 budget, the resolution to set the mill levy, the resolution to adopt the 2024 fee schedule, and the resolution to set the percentage for allocation of the lodging and occupation tax revenue. Any questions?
Yeah, you got your figures from the state, right?
Yes, I had those during our last meeting. You mean for the property taxes?
Correct.
Yeah, from Boulder County, yes, I did. Yes, so those were part of the presentation we did on the 19th.
Okay, so nothing changed there.
That's correct.
Great. Okay,
And you
do
did,
have a-
should have received the detail
did.
information. I sent that to you last week.
Got it in front of me.
Right. Good.
I have a question on that very thing Tom just asked. Is this annually now gonna be a thing with the county that like we can't get property tax values early enough to finish our budget before Christmas?
I wouldn't expect that to be that way.
They're two.
Okay.
They set them for 2 years, Billy, and then this one was especially weird because of HH and all the everything had to be refigured.
Right,
But
so-
can we expect the same dynamic at the end of 2025 where it rolls into, where it could potentially roll just slightly into 2026 like it could have? Yeah, I mean, basically, just logistically as a,
I mean,
I
it's
don't
possible, but-
think,
it's,
But what
I don't think the
what we
legislature
voted
has the
on-
ability.
I'm sorry,
Mm-mm.
but what we just did is only for a year. So, I mean, unless there's another, vote on that, but no, I wouldn't expect that, but it could happen. I mean, I don't know that.
yeah, my logic is just that it's as much work and kind of, stress, as much
Agreed.
work went into this budget and as much, things that, kind of as time went on, were kind of brought into the budget and things trying to reconcile it and new ideas, which have all been great. I think, being done with this before the holidays, I think logistically is nice. We have one trustee, not here tonight. Two of us are, at least two of us are in other parts of the country. It just would be nice to know that, is this something we just have to prepare for every year, or can we possibly be passing our, budget on the second meeting in December and be gone for the holidays? That's what I'm asking.
I would like that as well.
Okay, so it's not something that, this thing was kind of a one-off with the state and the county and the state, and therefore the county had time to give us new numbers, but this isn't something we have to
That's
plan
correct.
for every
And it's
year.
obviously
Okay.
the first time since I've been working for a town that this has happened.
And
And
we had most of our stuff put to bed before we went away for the holiday. This is kind of a formality tonight. Rita, I just want to say thanks for the summary you did on page 89. I know that now that it's good to see everything that fits on one page, and it's $11 million budget.
Yes.
Maybe I might just take us back a little quickly, just so you know our intention. The last 2 years we've had supplemental budgets right in August, which is the time we should be starting our next conversation for the next year, and we're revisiting the current budget we're in. So Rita and I, our goal has always been to work on the budget June and July. We're very committed to that this year, and obviously in hopes that we're not looking at a supplemental situation. We would like to start the budget much earlier, bring it to the Board of Trustees. Right now we're doing it end of October. We'd love to be having these budgetary conversations with you starting in September. So
Great.
whole timeline for us, we're going to shift it up by 3 or 4 months.
Cool. I think that'll be easier on everybody in the future. So cool. Thank you.
Yes, I do believe Proposition HH was just, something we couldn't anticipate what that would look like. And
Mhm.
then the quick turnaround where Governor Polis made that decision to, I can't remember the number, but where they voted on that, I think it was at the end of November. So it didn't allow us much time. So hopefully it won't be like that next year.
Yeah, I guess it was out of our control on that level, but well, thank you.
You're welcome.
What other, do you have an actual, do you not have a presentations for us tonight, dear? You just want open for clarifying questions right now?
Nope, that's it really. We had the summaries in is in the packet tonight, which really, like I said, really changed only by the $3,600. And then I had sent you the detail last week, so no presentation tonight.
Great. Do we have any more clarifying questions for Rita or Miranda before we go to public comment? If not, this is an all virtual meeting, so if you have a comment for us, chime in, raise your hand or start talking. Everyone is virtual, so now's your time. I don't have a good visual on everybody. Oh, I guess I do now to see if someone raises their hand. So
There's no one I see at this time. And just a reminder, I don't think I see any call-in users, but *6 if you're a call-in user.
I don't either. All right. Well, hearing none, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion. So, you know, I just want, I mean, I don't know. I have some things to discuss, but go ahead, you know, others, you know, do you have, what's on your mind before we get to the points of making motions?
I would like to do what I see as my collegial duty to Trustee Corvalin, who is here now, and just mention that there was an interest on her part in reducing the extra duty budget and associated income and expenditures by 50% across the board. That's extra duty sheriff's deputy budget that we added in. Tanya was interested in doing that. I, you know, said that I would float it out to you guys and see if there are a majority of us who have that same interest. I don't want to make it a long thing, but I do want to just field it and see if anyone is interested in reducing extra duty, both income and expense by 50% across the board.
Yeah.
I was just going to really quickly say that Sergeant Merriam is on and has some stats for you. You know, again, just a reminder, we did start this in December so we could bring in some stats. I'm not sure if you're interested in hearing those, but I wanted to just let you know he is here to provide them if you'd like.
I mean, I'd first like to hear from the board if there's interest in this discussion. And if there's not, then I don't think we need to bother Sergeant Merriam.
I have an interest
Zero
in this discussion.
interest on my part.
I'm interested in discussing this, yeah.
I just have a quick clarifying question for Miranda. The extra duty was something that is sort of added on each month, and if I remember correctly, always reassess a quarter, halfway, 3/4 in. If it's not working out, we can always pull back on it, correct?
Correct. You know, and when I met with Sergeant Merriam, we kind of talked a little bit and looking back at the minutes, just recognizing, you know, it was like peak times. Well, that really varies, right? It's kind of all over the place. But Sergeant Merriam did note that he could scale back, you know, what gets put out there for shifts, although it's likely you'll see a decline in what's being signed up for. You know, people are interested in signing up for these shifts because they work alongside other shifts that they're doing, other priorities, what else they have going on. And so that's something that we may see a decline where right now it's pretty open. And that's why we saw such an uptick in the number of people who signed on.
Yeah, so the fact that we have that ability to either throttle or pull back on at any point, I would say I'm comfortable with the current situation and what we have currently budgeted. I'm okay to not have a conversation around it.
That's two of us.
Let's see, Jesse?
I'm okay with the budget as currently drafted. I don't feel a compelling need to discuss further.
I mean, in that case, my suggestion, I mean, Mayor Billy, you can, by all means, you're running this meeting, but I put that out there, like I said, as what I feel to be a duty to a colleague. I personally am interested in reducing that budget and capping it so that we can't overuse extra duty. But if we don't have a majority of the board, I personally don't want to engage in a long discussion about this.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Tanya can't join us. Another reason why it'll be great to get budget done
Even
before
if
the
Tanya were
holidays.
here, we don't have a majority, so it wouldn't make a difference.
That's true. Yeah, I guess we'd have a 3-3, but yeah.
Well, we need 4 to pass the budget. So if you and Billy want to dig your heels in, you can block us from passing the budget unless we make you happy.
No, we just need a majority of quorum. to pass the
Of
budget.
people present, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of people present, not of total board. So
Okay, so 3 carries a motion today.
that's right.
Yeah.
It does for this
Good.
action item, yeah.
We're there.
But just to clarify real quick, Eric, your question of being capped at a certain amount, I would think that what we are capped at is the number of extra duty sessions or, you know, time allotments that we're offering per month is the cap. We're not going, at least is my understanding, Miranda, we're not going over that whatsoever.
No, so we would have
Attorney
to come
Matt
back
said
to
that,
you
so-
for a supplemental budget. So currently what we had proposed was budgeting, unless Rita, you have it faster than me. We were gonna budget an expenditure,
A 61,200 expense.
that's for the expenditure, right? That's for the officer. So if we exhausted that and we wanted to keep going, we would come back to you with a supplemental budget saying, hey, you know, we've exhausted this and this is how it's worked and this is what we're interested in. But it sounds like to me, maybe just the kind of the feeling of the board is giving Sergeant Marion that discretion to really assess when these shifts are appropriate and putting them out kind of for officers to sign up for, you know, again, using the same
Right.
guidance you gave us, but it's not an all month long, everything's available because we may exhaust those funds sooner. I think the original intention was to put out every day and then come to you maybe 6 months and say, hey, this is working really well. Do you want to keep going? But perhaps I can work with Sergeant Merriam to take a little bit different approach in trying to see how that 61 kind of stretches out. So we still have data, you know, we still may come to you as you consider your 2025 budget, starting to look at how the extra duty plays into that.
I'm comfortable with that. I'd like you two to work it out and tell us what you plan. I don't know if others agree with me, but that's kind of what I'd like to see rather than sit here as a board and debate it.
Also, Jennifer has her hand up.
I just want to make an important legal clarification related to adoption of the budget. It does need to be the majority of the members of the governing body that need to approve the resolution tonight. So it's just
That's a big
it's not a
thing.
majority of quorum, it's a majority of
Oh,
the
got it.
members. Yes.
That's 4.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. I did not realize.
I believe you, Eric.
Well, then I'd like to hear from Sergeant Merriam about, you know, where we're at with this and what he thinks about it, because I think it's, you know, I found Karen Blakemore's email kind of interesting, you know, I don't, you know, the 3 things she said, I don't think any of us think it's about punishing people. You know, is it about safety? Yes. You know, is it about generating revenue? Yes, it seems. And my goal would be to focus on safety and not maintain such a high level of extra duty for sake of revenue. So I'd like to hear from Sergeant Marion.
All right.
Myself.
So specifically related to the Nederland traffic extra duty, like our test in December, it was intended to be 4-hour shifts with an hour of drive time each way to try and incentivize people to come up. I don't need to get into all the minutia unless you want, but there are times where those shifts were 5 hours or 4 hours because people worked, you know, something like Eldora beforehand. And so we weren't charging the town drive time both ways when they were already in the area. So that's why the hours aren't going to line up exactly in 4 and 6 hour blocks. If you want a full breakdown, I can explain to you why each person's hours may not always equal 6, but just for the ease of it, that's why it doesn't always equal 6 hours for 4 hours worked and 2 hours drive, is because we didn't feel it right to charge the town drive time both ways if people were already up in the area. So with that, we had a total of 69 hours worked and then a total of 95 hours paid out with the various drive times. That, based on all the different salaries, I didn't break it down per hour, but my guesstimate was that it was going to be about $85 an hour. That 95 hours was $9,800. So it looks to be a little bit above the 85 I estimated. In that 69 hours worked, deputies wrote 140 tickets, generating $23,100 of estimated revenue. That's knowing some tickets were written for less than 165 and some were written for more. And then some were also summons directly to court. But I chose 165 to be the middle ticket price, which is where I'm coming up with the estimated ticket revenue of 23,100. The difference between the cost and the total revenue, couldn't think of a better word than profit, but I don't want to use the word profit. The difference or like the surplus is $13,200.19 for the town in the month of December.
Okay. That's a good experiment.
How many days of extra duty were there? I'm sorry, you probably said that. I didn't quite catch it.
I did not say that, sir. I can, it'll take me a minute, but I can count.
It was 69 hours and 95 fully loaded with drive time.
Well, so
Yeah,
just
so that was broken across 18 different shifts.
Got it.
18 shifts, and initially we were anticipating like an average of 10 4-hour shifts per month. Is that a correct, if I remember correctly from our previous meetings?
Yes, and then and that was based on looking at Superior and Lyons, who also do traffic extra duty. They average throughout the entirety of the year about 10 a month. They do ramp up during the summer typically, but because of what was offered in Nederland, it was super well received, and we had almost 20 signups.
Okay. And how many shifts did you, or were you looking at having in January?
Honestly, I was just gonna let people work it, and as long as they're making revenue, just let them do the hours they see fit and however to do it. I currently do have people signed up for January. So if we wanted to cut it back after that and you wanted to say just a certain amount a month, that is definitely doable.
Okay.
But January currently have $22 people wanting to work in January, or 22 shifts.
22 shifts. So that's even 4 more than we had last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Go ahead.
go ahead. No,
No, I want to hear. Go. You can ask. Please ask your questions.
So if my math is correct, we could assume that would be 176 citations with an overall revenue of this. I don't know the deputy's cost, but at approximately $29,000 revenue before paying the deputies for January.
Yeah, it looks like we're averaging $115 per hour, just like you said, with varying, rates and whatnot. So
yeah. So looking at, I'm trying to go through my emails.
It looks to me like it would yield about $30,000 of ticket revenue if we put that many hours into it in January.
And then minus.
Yeah, and I was talking to the Lyons sergeant about this, and he has a hard time estimating the ticket revenue as well, because of the varying salary, or not the ticket revenue, the cost revenue. So like an example, one of our newer deputies, was almost $200, $250 less than some of the other deputies for the same shift, just based on experience level.
Oh, wow.
Got
Okay.
it. Yeah, I just took the proportion, the 176 divided by 140 times 23K, and it comes up to about 30.
Miranda, I think it must have been in a previous board packet because I can't find it. The line item that was associated only to additional traffic coverage was what? It was like 72,000 maybe?
Well, we didn't break it out. It's all in Boulder County coverage, so it all falls within one line item.
But is that the one where I did break it out, where it's
Yeah.
99,000 for the contract and it's $61,200 for the extra duty pay?
I think that was in the document that Rita sent you with the
Last
notes.
week, yes.
It was
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But it's all going to fall into the one line item.
Right. No, that understood that, like when it comes to reporting, but just is specifically the expected revenue that the extra duty was anticipated in bringing in. Okay, I've got it right here. Yep. Okay,
I'd love to see traffic slow down. Do we have we seen evidence that traffic is slowing down?
Yes, sir. So I believe there's a Nederland Boulder County Watch Facebook page or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And they will post when we're out doing traffic. So obviously that only affects the people that are checking the page. But people have learned, the main spot we sit. And so it may not completely fix the behavior, but there are definitely people that see us sitting there and they slow down. You can see their car lunge forward, and then the radar drops in speed, and so those people we let keep going. So there is a behavior change, and that is probably likely mostly with locals.
Yeah.
The people who are coming to and from Eldora that don't know we're there are a majority of who we're getting. We have written a couple locals tickets, but it is by far a minority. It seems like they know we're there. And I don't know if it matters to the board, but I was on a traffic stop a couple days ago, and one of the community members came up and told me, thank you. He said, I've had trouble getting out of the post office and onto 119 because people are going so fast. Thank you for being here. People are slowing down. So it is noticed that we're there and seems to be appreciated by a lot of people in town. Probably not everybody, but definitely a lot of people.
That's where we wanted to go. That's great.
And then just on that, everybody that's going to Eldora to ski or work that we stop, we tell them, hey, we're going to be here when you're leaving. Let all your friends know when they're coming up, or your coworkers, that we are going to be here. And if you're speeding, you're likely going to get a ticket. So we are trying to spread the word and not just trying to capture people.
Yeah,
that's great.
It's important.
Miranda, I'd love to see the two of you put together a plan. I'd love to get this budget done tonight, but I'm comfortable with it. I know I'm not unanimous in this, but I like the ability. We can tune it. We seem to be getting the results that we were hoping for, and I'd say onward.
I definitely appreciate, Asa, that you're giving people the heads up, and I think it's great that folks are that you got that someone came up and said we appreciate what you're doing, and it is appreciated to see people slow down. I just, as I sit back, listen to this conversation, I hear more talk about the revenue generation than the traffic safety. I was glad, Tom, that you at least you did bring up are people slowing down, but like, to me, again, Karen Blakemore, letting people, given a one strike, letting people go, but they won't speed the next time. You pull them over, you give them one free pass, but just an idea, but to me, it's like, it's more about, whether we're not ticketing everybody or whether we're just having less extra duty shifts. If this is about generating revenue, which is what I'm hearing more, then I
That's
don't
what you
think,
said.
I think that's not the priority.
But can I just, as staff, maybe offer kind of a perspective from us, is that that's how it was introduced to us. We are obviously
Oh, yeah.
talking about revenue. We were talking about revenue generating. And so, yes, this is twofold, similar to speed cameras. It's twofold. You have public safety and you have revenue. This is a means to offset the budget deficit that you had. And so I do hear you, but I guess I just want to maybe remind the board that that was what you tasked us to do. And so kind of want to acknowledge that that probably is why when we present this, it comes across as more of a heavier revenue component, because that was really what we were tasked to do. And ACE has even acknowledged that with me, and really acknowledging of balancing out the kind of the need for public safety and revenue and community policing, and that there's a lot of conflicting priorities here. And so I think he and his team are just trying their best to navigate all of it. And I think that's, if you wanted us, maybe the direction is perhaps work with the 61,000, figure out how we can make that work throughout the whole year. And rather than revisiting this under a supplemental, you revisit it for the 2025 budget, but let Asa and kind of his expertise really navigate how extra duty feels appropriate. I think that would be our maybe ask as staff, is to allow this to have kind of its dual role of public safety and the revenue generating.
Yeah, and let's remember, we're taking in $11 million and we're spending $11,118,000. So anything that we can do to keep that capped helps, because we're going to have some surprises budget-wise we don't anticipate. We're going to have to revisit this again. And I really like the fact that traffic is slowing down. I find coming out of the post office is a different experience.
I'd be very happy to take the compromise that we give direction to town staff that this should be treated as the budget for extra year, and not to treat it like we're going to come back for a supplemental. I'd be very happy with that if we could kind of give that nod now.
I'd be happy with that as well, because I would agree, coming out of the post office, I agree in looking at it just from my house. I can't wait for the summertime when hopefully it's quiet in the Big Springs area, because you don't have all these cars and motorcycles just revving up their engines and going 80 miles per hour down that stretch. So I give a nod.
So I get, so remind me, the 60, I heard you say 61, what was the number? And is that based on 10 shifts a month? Like, was that where that number came from?
So we did 6-hour shifts at $85 an hour, 15 shifts per month times 8 months. So obviously we're going to need to go back and kind of recalculate maybe how those are released, because as Sergeant Merriam noted, it's currently just kind of, they're all days are open. And so we'll take
15 over 8 months, but that would, that's your average of 10 a month for 12 months. So that makes sense, but really letting Sergeant Merriam, decide when to use those and when not, because yeah, I definitely, if it's about a supplemental budget later, I'd rather, wait till next week and talk to, with Tanya, because, I want to, it just seems like it's more, I want it to be more about public safety than revenue. And yeah, you got the direction you got, I agree. But really looking at it now, it just seems the important thing is that people slow down, and I'm all for it. But it just seems, 22 shifts now in January is
we're
going to use up our numbers real fast.
Yeah, there are other things, right? There are other things, and that those might be leaf peeping season. Those might be festivals that happen in town that literally require more police coverage, like legally speaking, right? So there are good reasons, I think, to judiciously use that extra duty budget and maybe, save days for the moment where it's really, really needed, rather than just releasing, every day of the month, every single month. And I think that way, we can both have the flexibility to, bring in more support for the police when we need to do that, while also kind of being judicious about how we police our citizens. And I think that I would be happy with that as the compromise that we make here, to leave the budget as it is, but assume that budget is for the year. And, obviously a new board will be seated in April and they might change their mind on that, and that's fine.
And
But
so I guess,
as it is
Eric,
now.
my one concern with that is, and that sounds very similar to Lions extra duty budget. So Sergeant Sears is given a budget for Lions, and with that he does traffic. Parks patrols is something they want when the parks in town are very busy in the summer, that are in town limits. They have three, I believe, parades a year that have like 8 to 10 deputies staffing them. And then he also pays for their flock cameras out of that budget. But basically they give him that budget and he decides how to use it, knowing that he does have things that he needs to save for. And the big one at the end of the year is always the Christmas parade. Right now in this meeting, I have no idea what events are happening in town this year, what will need to be covered. Obviously we lost the big one of Frozen Dead Guy Days, and that's in Estes, but I'm sure there's other events and festivals or things at Chipeta Park that may not require extra duty, but would be good for it. So I think that is something we could discuss, but I am not ready to present that, or even would know where to start on the budget for that for the rest of the year.
I think, Asa, we could take that offline, you and me, because I think, in some situations, we may have event organizers pulling extra duty separate from our extra duty budget. And so I think, yes, if you're comfortable, Asa, I think we could come back to the board in just a staff report to let you know how we really kind of thought through this, or just provide monthly updates about what extra duty is looking like, where it might get ramped up in some places and pulled back in others.
Yep.
And to be fair, we discussed this as a group in December. All of us were in the room. We kind of came to alignment at that time. And now, and so the direction we gave was to finish the budget, please, and bring it to us on January 2nd for approval. Now, because of a couple of letters, people are feeling that they maybe wanted to change things, but the direction we gave Miranda in the last meeting was, and Rita, that we were in alignment, we were ready to go, we weren't going to come back with anything, and so I think I'd like to get on with the budget, because nothing materially has changed. In second thoughts, we're all entitled to them, but we said we were going to move ahead tonight.
I agree, Tom, and to be perfectly above board, this matter is not going to determine my vote on this budget. So,
Right.
and it never was going. It never was going to. So, just to be perfectly honest.
Well, Eric, I'm filling out your application to rerun for trustee. I'll send it over to you when we're done.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
So, I hear that sentiment, but at the same time, I mean, it's fine for us to be discussing this today. There's definitely things in the budget that, well, to stick with this, I mean, it did make sense, initially, as Tanya has said, like we started talking about, we were trying to talk about how's the paid parking going to affect overflow parking into the BNF parking lot. And that's where we started talking about extra duty. And then it became clear extra duty cops really had no jurisdiction on private property to enforce parking, parking on private property without being paid separately for that. So then it just kind of morphed into this as our way to, make money versus speed cameras. And I think when we have 22 shifts being chewed up in December or January, and we just had 18 in December, this 10 a month is kind of, that average is going to go up dramatically we don't really have any festivals and we just happen to be in ski season, but 22 days is a little over 2/3 of January. We're probably talking more like 20 days a month. And I think I'm kind of hearing Tanya's desire to want to cut that back, in half. It's, but
Retroactively, if we're agreeing to something.
I'd like to finish talking. I think if we can, I'm listening to Eric and kind of this compromise, if we can look at that 61,000 and spread it out, so those 120 extra 2D days a year kind of are used well, then I think we're accomplishing the need of reducing, public safety and reducing speeding. We're generating revenue we should generate from it, but it's not just becoming kind of this presence that really, isn't reflecting well for Boulder County Sheriff's Office, in my opinion, either, as they're starting to take the reins of law enforcement. It's not just a couple letters, let's be honest. So
No,
my vote's not enough to sway it, but that's my take on it.
No, but to Sergeant Merriam's, they are getting some praise. Maybe not everyone, but I would say people are thankful. I also heard from someone that they were thankful that they're making people slow down because it started to feel really dangerous coming out of the post office. Okay.
Okay. Two more things. First of all, Boulder County Sheriff's Office, the animal control, I think, that, I mean, Tanya's not here, but she was for that, and I think she still is. But I do want to just bring it up because, only 4 people were last time, which is enough to pass it, but one of them isn't here. And I think ultimately the fact that, none of us want people to be, stuck leaving a voicemail, or, none of us want, or I don't want, I can't speak for everyone, but I don't think anyone wants, like, Britt to be a town staff answering hours at all hours of answering phone calls at hours of the day. And we don't want people, we want people to be trained and experienced to go out there and deal with these things, versus just having someone who isn't. So I mean, it just seems unfortunate with Boulder County Sheriffs that we have to do this, but and ultimately, I think there'll be the votes for that to pass too. But I would just, this animal ordinance, part of what hopefully will come through that, or is clarity on what our animal control folks are up here to do versus what they aren't up here to do. Like, I just think if it's being here for sake of vicious dogs and hostile dogs, that is great. That fills the need that needs to be filled, that town staff shouldn't have to do, that Boulder County Sheriff's Office needs that, part of the contract for them to be able to respond to these, animal incidents. I just also don't want it to be, a bunch of, off-leash dogs getting thrown in the vehicle, or, I'm just hoping we can keep it, like you said, Sergeant Merriam, consistent with what we really want out of the deal, which is just really for dangerous dogs or dangerous animal situations. So it's not like I can sway things there, but I want to make that statement that, like, I don't care about the 24,000 or whatever it is. Like, that's fine. It's not really the money. I care about it, but I think it's probably a good investment ultimately. I just want to make sure that it's used specifically for what it's used for, because we chose not to go with it months ago, and now we're choosing to go with it specifically because of some vicious dog incident, and I think that's what we need to use it for. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, a counter argument to that of what I explicitly lived through, we had a neighbor dog that always came to our house because we gave him, petted him and tried to always call the owner to come and pick him up. The owner wasn't always available, sometimes for days. And so that dog would hang out at our house for days. and it would bark at anybody that was walking across like our street. And so this wasn't technically a vicious dog, but we had no recourse other than to call the police. And this is when we had Ned PD. Because like the dog needs to be taken care of. There were times that we just let it in the house at night because it was below 0. And that shouldn't be our burden to take on. We didn't want the dog to suffer. But again, this is not a vicious dog scenario, but that dog needed to be taken care of. And when you can't get a hold of their owner for 2 days, which was the longest that we ended up taking the dog for, and then calling the police, I wanted to be able to have our citizens have a recourse in those instances as well.
That's a great example of where animal control should be used to. So thanks. Yeah. That's a great point. That's a great situation where it isn't a vicious dog, but yeah, we're Boulder County Sheriff Animal Control is worth contracting for. So those kind of extremes or those kind of, situations are, I'm glad you brought it up. So that does color me just focusing on vicious dogs, like, dogs in need of, their own welfare being taken care of. All for it. Yeah, so. Again, though, but I think, I just want Sergeant Marion to please stay focused on the community policing that we're asking for, because all this stuff is coming in with you guys coming in, and it's, it's the optics that you're gonna, the optics that are there are gonna, affect how people look at you guys as our law enforcement. I think in general, there's, we're happy with the fact that you guys are taking it over, but if I'm just, if I think we need the presence where we need it, and then we don't need it where we don't need it. Kind of thing.
Yeah, and the community policing is going to be a lot more in depth and better once we have dedicated people up here full time. The people that just graduated the academy or who will come up here, once those people are fully trained, that's when we'll start to see the aspects of community policing. Community policing is basically pointless if it's not the same people, because you can't build the rapport and the relationships. So like in large cities, that's why people will work specific beats, and it makes it hard when we do have our typical mountain deputies and the main 6 that are working the shifts, but then we, sprinkled in 4 or 5 others, and it's hard for them to know the dynamics of certain individuals or businesses, things like that. So I think it's hard we can't confuse extra duty, whether it's just extra duty patrols or the traffic enforcement, with what you are going to get when the team actually shows up. But they will be more directed towards the community policing, foot patrols, getting to know business owners, know people in town, go have lunch with the kids at schools. Same stuff a lot of our mountain deputies are already doing in town, but those day shift people will be focused on that. They will still respond to calls, still do traffic, but that's where you're going to get the community policing. If you want to pay extra duty for people to come up and walk through businesses and be that, that's something that could be done, but it's not a good use of the town's resources. So I do agree that community policing is a big thing. It's the proper way of policing, and it's how it should be done. But I don't want that to be confused with the extra duty, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But and then hopefully, I guess with that, I mean, that's a really good point, and hopefully it points to the fact that the community policemen will also, which you just said, do traffic, which maybe will help us with this, this kind of thirst for extra duty for sake of generating revenue and slowing people down. That some of the things, they'll have those relationships, and like you said, but if they're the ones also, pulling people over, that they might know that there's a, this person, and be willing to see the bigger picture of why they're speeding that day versus just handing out a ticket. So I hope they're also doing that, which, reduces our need for extra duty as we
Yeah,
go on.
and they will still be doing traffic because, if you're a night shift person, nobody wants you knocking on their door to come talk to them at 10 p.m. or a day shift person. We don't want to be bothering people at 6 to 8, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. So they'll still be in town, they'll still be visible. And, the request by me will be try to make, 4 to 5 traffic contacts a day. And if you see fit, write 2 tickets. Just to keep that going so people know that
with the full with the full time.
Yeah. And just one example, I think most of you know Beth. She stopped someone going like 27 over in town, and she got up there, and instead of just saying, "Give me your license, registration, insurance," "Hey, do you know a speed limit?" "Yes." "Do you know how fast you're going?" "Yes, I do." "Okay, you know that you're going 27 over. Why are you doing that?" "My dog is hemorrhaging and I'm getting it to the vet." And she said, "Okay, leave." And so she didn't write that person a ticket. It wouldn't have been the right thing to write that person a ticket. So I don't want you guys thinking that it's just faceless and nameless. We just willy-nilly hand out tickets. It's when people are violating the speed limit and there's not really a valid reason.
Thank you. I appreciate that kind of, specifics. It's good to hear that Beth was able to do that. Well, thanks. I mean, that was just my kind of points on that. And then, my last thing, that, we've talked about some, and I think, where my opinion is on paid parking. I think I'm the only one with this opinion, but I did bring something up the other day, and I saw some people, Eric, Jesse and Tom looking at me, in a way that I think hopefully makes you think about it, which is, I think most all y'all want paid parking. I still don't, but I think what we need to be able to address is how it's going to affect the the other parts of town, the neighborhood to the east of downtown, the BNF, and if I'll say if, I think it's more when, but if it starts to overflow into those areas, what are we going to do to help with that pressure? Because I think it is pressure that that we should at least anticipate. I expect it'll happen, but we should at least anticipate it will. And how are we going to relieve that? And then also, I thought we were going to have some parameters around the whole local thing for the paid parking tonight. Maybe I misunderstood that, but I do want to understand better, the local deal on paid parking versus the non-local deal. So those are my 2 issues where, like, I really don't know specifically still what we're going to do for the locals. And then I am concerned that we need to have a plan in place for those peripheral areas that are going to be affected by overflow and people not wanting to pay to park.
It's a budget discussion tonight. That's what we're trying to approve, is a budget. Do we want to get into policy?
Yes, Tom. I mean, I want to know that we're going to get into policy, because I feel like it's been skirted. It hasn't been answered. I do believe that I thought we were going to see something like that tonight. At least around the locals. And no, you're right. It's a budget. We're going to decide on the budget, but will the policy discussion happen is really what I'm asking.
So I think it's Miranda. So the interstate parking contract, is currently being reviewed by Attorney Mattson, but told her, here's kind of your choice is you budget for it like you did in 2023, and then you can decide whether you use it or not next year. I think we didn't really want to muddy the waters too much tonight with the logistics of interstate parking, because that's going to be a long discussion about how do you want the first 15 minutes free? How do you want to handle the residential passes? So, also we can talk about how we want to handle the parking being moved outside of those areas. That was much larger than the budget. And so I think strategically felt as staff, we don't want to kind of get that to muddy the waters. Now, I understand what you're saying is that perhaps it's hard to make the choice of whether you want to budget for this or not, but I guess I just want to offer that reminder that you've budgeted for paid parking before and we never executed it. So you still have that decision that you can make if when we bring the contract for parking, it's not feeling appropriate to you, then you can always choose not to execute it with just the understanding that that's a budgeted revenue that then won't be kind of actualized or realized in 2024.
Thanks. Yeah,
My-
thanks for that.
My
ahead.
understanding is that we budgeted with the notion of a local pass
Yes.
and a 15-minute period
Yes.
for everyone for
Yes.
free.
This is my understanding.
And then that is what the budget reflects. It reflects a potential policy where the revenue will be basically minimized due to offering free parking for locals and a 15-minute free period. And so that's why it's budgeted conservatively on the income side for that purpose. And I personally do think that was pretty clear, but if I'm wrong about that, then obviously I didn't understand.
So maybe I will reiterate that yes, that is how town staff, we've always presented it with the 15 minutes free, the residential parking. I think you even had us go back and kind of calculate in some of that consideration when we went into the budget. So it is definitely fiscally conservative and recognizing that you're really kind of grabbing tourists with that. We understand that residents, while they have park passes, may choose to park elsewhere. So I think the only thing that hasn't really been assessed is how will other entities handle that? And I think it's a lot of conversations with Tebow, the neighbors. You can also start to sign, I talked to Sergeant Merriam about it. We could start to sign neighborhoods that says, residential parking only, and they have the passes. And so if they don't have the passes, then our team can go and enforce it. And so there's options here that hasn't been explored just yet, because all we were really looking at from a budgetary standpoint is how are we budgeting for a contract with interstate parking and what would that look like? And yes, the plan was to always execute it the way Idaho Springs does, which is the first 15 minutes free in the residential passes.
Well, thanks. Any other questions or comments or discussion?
Do we have to do public comment on this?
We already did.
We did. There was none, unfortunately.
I'd like to make a motion that we pass the budget as currently drafted.
Second.
So there's 5 resolutions and you need to do them
Yeah,
one at
so
a time.
we've got to pass these resolutions pretty specifically. I'm
Right.
happy to read
Take
them.
us away, Eric.
Start reading them out.
That'd
That's
be
one.
great.
All righty. So we've got. I move to approve resolution number 2024-02, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2024.
Second.
Macy?
All right. Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahol,
Yes.
and Trustee Severs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Next, Eric, you want to keep going?
I move to approve resolution number 2024-03, setting the 2024 mill levies.
Second.
Macy?
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Trustee Severs,
Yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahol,
Yes.
and Mayor Billy.
Yes.
Thank you.
I move to approve resolution number 2024-04, setting fees, rates, and charges for various town licenses, permits, and services.
Second.
Macy?
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Severs,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Mahol.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I move to approve resolution number 2024-05, allocating 51% of the lodging occupation tax revenue to be transferred to the Health and Uses Fund, and the remaining 49% to stay in the general fund and be allocated to law enforcement services.
Second.
Macy?
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahol,
Yes.
and Trustee Severs.
Yes.
Thank you.
That. All of them are that. Okay. Thank you. So the motions, the resolutions, sorry, the resolutions all passed. And with that, we will move on to our discussion item this evening. The Town of Netherlands Branding and Creative Identity presentation. I believe Peter. Is Peter going to be opening up the same?
Oh, no. Yeah, so I will be introducing this, and then I will hand it off to Godot to go through a presentation. But basically tonight, we'll be showing you the work that has been done on this new brand identity for town. For a quick recap, last year we were awarded a grant through the Colorado Tourism Office for developing this brand identity that specifically reflects our community's sense of place and core values. During the summer, we put out the RFP for that. We got 15 different proposals, which for something like this is a lot. And we went through a long review process and eventually decided to go with Godot Creative. It was apparent to us during the review and interview process that they had the best understanding of what, Netherlands' overall vibe, what makes us unique, and that they were also more than well equipped to handle this project. So after that, we signed with them, and through all of October and November, they did a rather sizable community engagement project, meeting with multiple people over multiple weeks in different workshops to get insight and ideas on what we as a community believe to be Netherlands identity, looking at all kinds of things. In the first month, just kind of doing a lot of big overview stuff and then getting into the nitty-gritty in November. That was followed up at the end of November and last month with some work sessions where there was discussion and reviews of early renditions of the identity. And that leads us to where we are tonight. What you can expect from this overall presentation from Godot is what you're going to see is the culmination of the information and insight they received from these workshops, from the community specifically. And they're going to show you what the brand identity looks like at its current stage. It's not quite done, which is why we're presenting it to you to get more feedback and solicit insight and thoughts on it. Before I do hand this over to Beckett, I would like to stress that what you're going to see is based off of what they received from the community directly over the past few months. So it's not just a logo redesign, it's a complete brand identity. I know both Mayor Billy and who else was at the meeting?
Mayor Pro Tem Tom
yeah.
Holt.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold did get to sit in on our last work session and provided some valuable insight into that as well. So you understand that it's not just a logo. It's going to be something that we can use for everything, including updating our signage through town, to official documents, to putting for events or guides, flyers, leaflets, everything that we can think of. So those are the things to keep in mind. So I will now hand it over to Beckett.
Hello, everybody. So we won the contract and now we spent the last 3 months just trying to destroy it. Can you all hear me okay?
We do.
I tell you, Netherlands stays up late. I am drinking coffee. I'm doing everything in my power. I went to bed at 9 o'clock for New Year's. So I appreciate all of your commitment. We're texting back and forth, and Jay is writing just how amazing it is that this many people are willing to care this much about the little town that they live in, to give up. You know, I mean, we're going to be doing this till 10 o'clock at night. So absolute respect. I'm going to go ahead and share screen. And I will try to talk as little as possible here. We've kind of divided up roles among the team and a couple of community members that have been with us in the thick of this here, who I'll introduce when we get to that point. Peter and Miranda, thank you for the introductions there. Can everyone see my screen?
We do.
Okay, great. So we're going to try to break this down into 20 minutes, and then public comment. Have at it. Before we jump into the design, I want to talk about process and engagement and sort of the model that not only we follow as a concept design studio, but what really is kind of the evolution from design thinking. I believe Vu is on here with us, but he is suffering from COVID. So he will be jumping in and out as he is able. Vu, I hope you're feeling better. So design model and how we got here, starting from the ground here. So back in the 80s, there was a lot of confusion around the term like graphic design, right? You can still go to Kinko's copies and hire a graphic designer who does that. In the parlance of concept design, this is called directive design, right? In directive design, the design firm doesn't have any relationship with the idea. We don't really call this design anymore. The world doesn't call it design anymore. It's more called like production design, right? Where you sketch out a logo and you bring it in and somebody draws it for you. Or these programs like Fiverr and stuff where you put out a concept and 50 people come in and you choose one and it's done. So this is kind of like an old school back in the day when technology had not democratized the creation of visual assets and prototypes and code and mock-ups and 3D printer. Old school, not really there. Where we are as a society is what is called responsive design, where the design team has a relationship and is responsible for being part of the group that brings that idea to fruition. This is really what we kind of call design now. I imagine a lot of you were around or still use the term design thinking, super popular in like, you know, late aughts, early teens. Design thinking was a codification of this process that before Stanford bought it and IDEO bought it, it was called human-centric responsive design. That's what they call design thinking. And it's very good. I don't want to bash on design thinking at all. It was a little bit oversold, but it did have a great value of giving us these terms like understand and define and think and build and test and create. The reason that we have a whole bunch of synonyms here in our model is they're all basically the same thing. In order to brand this stuff and sound fancy, people call it, you know, empathizing, but it's really, you know, we used to call it getting to know your customers, right? So this is the responsive design model that we've been following. Where it becomes a little bit more consultative is this initial step. We call it innovation design. You can call it whatever you want, but it's basically the design of the design. So when we took on this project, we sat down originally with Miranda, Nikki, Nicole, Peter, and it was me, Vu, and ET in the meeting. And they were kind of our core. And we talked about ways to best reach the community. And we made decisions like we should do it in restaurants instead of doing everything virtual. We made decisions like just having a survey where everybody, chooses their top 6 words for Nederland, that we wanted to go a little bit deeper than that. And we also recognized that it was impossible to pull 240 people through 20 design sessions to get everything that we need from it in order to create something. So obviously the Godot team, but also Miranda, Peter, and there were a few others that were kind of constants throughout this. I want to call out Natalie, who's going to talk later on about the use of imagery. I'm going to call out Larry, who's going to talk about fonts. I hope he's been able to join. I just got a message from him saying that he was downloading WebEx. And then we have Sam, who's going to talk about the logo mark itself. And then periodically, I'm going to call on some other folks who are part of these sessions, maybe even the individual brainstorming stuff. So this is a big picture. You meet, you figure out how to best get these ideas. That core team designs the design. You go into this deep, empathetic, understanding research phase where you define the problem of what a visual identity needs to solve. And then you think and you brainstorm and you ideate. These were the 24 sessions throughout the restaurants around picnic tables that we ran analog, and then the work sessions and the reactions. Then you build it out, which we did before starting the group. We tested with that group. We even built some mock-up brochures and things just to make sure that works, and then you execute and produce. I'm not going to open it up fully for questions yet, but does anyone on the board or does any core stakeholders, does anyone have something that they're just burning to say about this process? Cool. I was hoping not, because it just sort of is what it is at this point. Bringing back my thing. So with that, we are going to talk about the activities and the input from E.T. Lawrence, our brave owner and head of operations.
I'm going to start yapping.
E.T., I'll turn it over to you. Uh-oh. E.T., you might be muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
All right. So we started with this 6-word stories. Because when we came into this process, we were like, let's pretend we don't know anything about Netherlands. And this was our guiding post, so to speak, to give us a starting point of where we should go. And next slide, please. Okay. And this was our past, present, and future exercise. We ran it twice. I believe some of the people here were in it. Here we were looking what the past was, what people thought the past was, their present, and what they were hoping to get for the future. And something that really stuck out was somebody said, think bigger, fear smaller. And this is also the same group where we learned that Netherlands is very funky, not in a bad way.
Yeah, funky became a very controversial term. As ET goes through this, I want to chime in for 20 seconds just out of transparency. When you think about design thinking and people running around with Post-it notes and putting them under columns of this and change that and do that, that's all we're doing here. We're not trying to pull some kind of a weird mysticism thing. We just wanted to run them analog and kind of put people into a different headspace, but we're still just gathering that vague definition of what Nederland is. Go ahead, ET.
Oh. And out of that exercise, we did a time capsule exercise. The purpose of that was to really figure out what people hold dear here. And here we learned that really the people of Netherlands are what makes the vibrant community and the things surrounding it, like a Barker Race, Carousel of Happiness, the historic and cozy cabins, and also dirt roads and trails that everybody seems to love. That. And then we had a staff meeting. here we learned that the team is really open to the ideas and extremely hardworking, and they are open to fixing problems in new ways.
Intentional MacGyver was something that was thrown in.
Right. Then we had a youth group right after that. Soup. Yes, okay, I'll jump in there. This was excellent because in here we learned the first time when really that it turned out that the duality of Netherlands, the dichotomy versus old versus new, past versus future, the polarized push and pull, and it applies to pretty much everything there, to the weather, to people, projects, and all that.
Cool. Hey, Jay, tell us a little bit about soup and why we're talking to people about soup. Real quick, Jay Clark is our subject matter expert, hangs out in Gold Hill, musician, chef, one of my favorite creatives in the world because he doesn't pretend to be a visual designer. He's a human designer. Jay, Todd, why do we care about soup? Why do we care about our mute buttons?
That is why. Thanks, Beckett. So we care about soup and dearly because it's delicious, right? But the whole point of this, and honestly, a lot of the exercises, is just to get people using more words and thinking outside the box and describing something, and we can learn something that we haven't learned before, right? So I've been a chef my whole life. And when you break down a soup, we broke it into base, protein, spice, aromatics, and garnish. And just those words conjure up different reactions from people when you're saying, well, what is the base of Netherlands, right? You can get a deeper understanding of like, their first impulse of what is Netherlands, where do we live, what does it come from, what's the ground floor of it, and it gets people thinking outside the box, and it's beautiful. And that's the point of these exercises. Netherlands is unique. I mean, it's kind of a lame word for it because every town probably describes themselves like that, but Netherlands actually is, and it's a community, right? And so this exercise was for trying to really get some warmth and some nuance into feedback, because what we're doing is distilling all these ideas into one product, which is what a soup is, right? You put all these things into one and you end up with something, the sum is greater than the whole of its parts.
Garnished wildflowers. Was a quote from this. Thank you, Jay. E.T.?
And color exercise. So we ran that twice. And the first time we did it with the Teens ink, and something that was really beautiful that came out where somebody said, fear of character getting lost. I thought it was really important. And then in the art center, you see the bike. Oh, we have fonts already. I wanted to talk a little bit about the bike ride memory of.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There, as you can see. This was the art in the art center. And William's memory really stood out because he's 7, and it was so literal that it was like, oh, wow, we should really use. Next now. Fonts. So for fonts, we chose in here is only 9 fonts, but we had 12. And if Larry is here, maybe he can talk a little bit about how that exercise went.
Yeah, Larry, were you able to get on to WebEx? Not sure he was able to get on yet. So ET actually wasn't at this design session. Word marks are a little bit silly when you start paying attention to them and you start looking at all these brands with a font mark of some sort. They're they're pretty basic, for lack of a better term. So rather than go down the rabbit hole of here are 17 legit recommendations, what we did was take 12 of the major families of typefaces. Hey, is Brian on here? And is Brian in a spot to speak? Okay, we'll talk about it.
Yep,
Do you feel like chiming in on any of this font activity since Larry is not there?
Sure.
Am I sticking you with it?
No, so I think just in summary, we had a number of participants who got to essentially represent these fonts to the other people who are participating in the session. I'm kind of selling what we thought was good about them and what was bad about them, and ultimately we kind of voted on how well we thought they might represent what Nederland represents.
Brian was a very good salesman on Bada Boom. Bada Boom is this one right here in the middle. Bada Boom is not going to be used for the Nederland font, but compliments to the sales. So what we were aiming for here was just kind of this broad direction of what the font should be. And I'm spending some time on this importantly because this is going to come back around a lot throughout this discussion. Over here on the left, you see this font called Skinny. This was universally really, really actively disliked by the group, which I was thrilled to learn because I think it's overused, right? You see it on every organic food packet, but it also is kind of like the intuitive choice for Nederland. And when ET talks about things being unique and Jay talks about every town says they're unique, but Nederland actually is, I was happy to hear that people weren't coming in hot with, oh, it should be organic and hand-drawn and look like it's on, an oatmeal box or something. So it was vetoed. And we kind of, as a group, decided that sort of the more modern sans serif decorative fonts fit in better with Nederland than the old timey things, at least for the word mark. And if you can kind of burn this into your mind, I'm going to come back to it. Right here in the middle three down, just our standard kind of Arial black font. What I wanted Larry to speak to was this, a lot of folks kind of like this feel. It's real easy to read. It stands out. We're used to it and things. But he made the comment, or maybe someone else made the comment, that it was grounded but not uplifting. Right. So kind of let that sit in your head for a little bit as we move into the application of this stuff. ET.
All right. So next we had, this was the, art exercise. We started from 1400s and we got to 1982. Why we wanted to bring parallels in from what Nederland is there, and from there we learned that there is always more what you see in first sight, somebody said, and also somebody said that Nederland is amalgamation made of little pieces that makes us whole, separate but cohesive. So
Mackenzie, so we did this exercise twice. We did it with the staff and it went okay. It didn't sing perfectly. And then we did it back to back with the youth group over at Teens Inc. And Mackenzie was there along with Jay. Matt, can you kind of share what, more from a fine arts perspective, what you heard the kiddos say about this exercise?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Typical question. Okay, thank you. That's great. The kids were so insightful. They were so engaged. They had so many great things to talk about. And what I thought was really good from their perspective was they're starting to understand how to, put all those words and themes and everything that we've been talking about with Nederland into a visual identity and start talking about things through, visual cues and vibes and what the kind of aesthetic Nederland is, rather than just symbols and things to describe it. And they would pick up on certain things from the Impressionist time period that were very much contradictions, as much roughness as softness, as much vibrancy as natural elements. And so they were really insightful. And some of the students, like Blue, said something about speaking on the Warhol, Marilyn Monroe kind of repetition of, people painting her against her will, and the importance of, creating a visual identity for yourself before somebody else does it. And I thought that was really cool. It was really, really great exercise.
What Blue said about the Marilyn Monroe thing was I mean, it was a goosebump moment, right? We've all seen that thing a million times and variations of the soup can, but with the person, that Marilyn Monroe, 3 up, 4 down, whatever it is, and it's blue and yellow and pink, and it's all just the same picture of her. What Blue said was that people were defining her against her will, that she was a constant, but people kept painting her even though she was holding still. Difficult to capture, but it felt like there was a lot of things there when it applied to Nederland, right? We don't want someone else telling Nederland who you are. So when we show these designs here in a minute, you're going to see a lot of flexibility in it. The logo isn't set. They're like variations of it. Mackenzie built these just amazing little organic things that go into it. And overarching, we didn't want to come in, too hot with this is your template for posters. This is your template. To respect, Peter and Karina and the staff as well, that they're also designers. So we didn't want to be overly rigid with the design of this in this roundabout way of thinking about Andy Warhol and Blue and Teens Inc. All right. E.T., I think any other overarching things you would like to share that we didn't hit on the overview there?
Yeah, we did a quick AI exercise where we let a handful of people experience turning words into imagery, because we wanted to know if those words meant the same thing to them than those words mean to us. Then we did a vote down exercise where we described pictures. We had 3 pictures and we chose the one we liked the best, and from out of there came that to stay hyper-local, better focus on nature and not as much on people, and buildings, especially the historic ones, sense of scale, vastness and closeness, if we can bring that together. And also, and the final exercise we did was to dive into brands, logos, and word marks, where we learned that Nederland is a liminal space. It's artsy, elemental, funky, and gritty, understated, comfortable, spirited, and majestic. And that's what I've got.
Thank you, E.T. And if anybody is on from that group with where we talked about Hermes and Apple and all that stuff, I want to sincerely say thank you. That was the last group, and I think we were out of activities at that point, and it turned out to be a really good, really interesting session. But it was really getting into the weeds. So so far, I'm going to pause for a second. We have set the stage, and we are about to look at actual elements. Are there any burning questions or comments so far from everyone? I know I'm probably not following Robert's rules of order, but does anyone have anything that they would like to interject with or support or questions? And on we go here. All right, setting the stage. 5 minutes, vocabulary, take notes, get them in your head. If you don't want to do any of that, just kind of believe us. So there's a lot of vocabulary around design, and we throw them around. Nobody really knows what a logo is. This isn't actually a brand, it's a visual identity. But we also shortcut all of that, so you don't have to change it, just for the sake of this and as we discuss it. The logo mark is like that typically abstract shape that represents a brand. In Nike, this is supposed to be it represents the Nike of Amethyst or something. Winged Victory is where this swoop came from. The word mark is generally what identifies the name of the town or the organization or the government or the family or whatever. And then together you get what we're just going to call combined. I think there's probably a fancier word for it. And you'll notice that if you look at whatever brands you're around right now, you'll see that they don't always appear together. And once you kind of have the context of wearing Nike shoes, you see the swoosh on them, but they don't also say Nike on them, right? They kind of live independently. And then with the integration of the tagline, right? So now we have the tag, which we're all comfortable with, and then the logo mark. And here we have just kind of a variation on the logo mark. I have no idea what that means for Nike. Next, we have context, right? So we've all probably heard the story about the Nike logo was just done by somebody's cousin for $50, right? I would argue that it's a very cool logo, but it really has very little to do with their success as a company. What does give them success are things like the context and the black and white and Colin Kaepernick and this sort of unconditional support for the human spirit is more the brand of Nike than the logo. So when we look at this, we're going to be thinking about context, how imagery lives inside the visual identity. And then finally, we were calling these like whimsies or motifs or something, right? And you kind of see all of Nike coming together. Down here in the lower right, you see it's still their logo, but they're doing some kind of a 50th anniversary thing. They're using the same style of imagery, but they're kind of brightening the colors up. So it's still very much within the visual identity of Nike. And these logos and things are moving around, but it still feels in the same family. So when we think about Marilyn Monroe being painted different colors, we wanted to give the town of Nederland something that still allowed for that individual expression within the bookends of the visual identity system. So one more time, 2 seconds each. Logo mark, word mark combined with a tagline, some kind of integration in the context of what the brand wants you to feel, and then room for whimsies and embellishments depending on its use and the mood that you want to create. Cool? All right. Presenting the elements. This is scary for us. So, don't get out your pitchforks on this, okay? We're not government officials. If you're mean to us, I'm going to be mean back. Don't be mean, all right? This is very personal and a lot of work going into it. Here we go. Any chance Larry has come on? This was his piece. No, all right, no Larry. So the Potra font, staying in lines. This is a deeply decorative font. You would not want to type you wouldn't want to type a newsletter, and it's not a body copy thing. It's modern. When you zoom in on it, as you see, you begin to get the shapes of Nederland, right? The ampersand, we joke, almost looks like a map of downtown. It's very flowy. It builds in the flow and the connections of the community without stepping all the way back to like a Disney copper plate. You know, it's one step past that Disney thing. And the minute that Nederland said they were unique and unusual and genuine, we knew that every thought had to be one step back from the Disneyfied version. So you can kind of see the neat flows and things here. And when put into application with the word Nederland, we're left with this. It's simple. It is not bold and overtly easy to read, but it is easy to read. It's subtle and it's delicate rather than bold. Why is it not easy to read? This was kind of a silly epiphany that we had as a group, but the name of the town in 99% of applications is not actually the most important thing on the page. If there's a warning about forest fires on a poster, you need to see the part that says forest fire warning, and the town logo is actually way down in the lower right-hand corner most of the time. So we, with the core group, we even went through and we printed out different weights of these to make sure that we kind of hit the right point in legibility from a distance and things. And obviously it's all out the window if it goes on a billboard or something, then you're in a different design application. But this is what we felt just for the word mark kind of hit the things on Nederland. Anybody else from the Godot team, knowing that I am winging it up here without my boy Larry, does anyone have anything to add?
I'll add something, one about the design and one more kind of overarching theme that I want to make sure we get out of the way. But the design itself, and I imagine Beckett's going to get into it, but right, it's a tweaked version of a font. We went through every font, right? So literally all of them. and then made more. But the font is versatile, right? And it can read in lots of different ways. It looks like rivers and paths. It's got different colors of dots on it, and there's a lot of subtlety to it that should not be read at the bottom of a memo or or something like that. But then it is still a broader picture font, and it becomes more interesting the more you want to use it. So it's extremely versatile and fun. And also, just an overarching theme that I want to make sure is that all of these things are tools. And I don't know if we've explicitly said that. We probably have, but like this font is a tool. It's not that this exact thing is now going to be on everything everybody uses. It's everything explained from now on is this wonderful toolbox of things that Peter, Miranda, and everyone can access.
Mm-hmm. You remember
I think it's just important.
Color forms as a kid, where you'd have the superheroes in the buildings and you could stick them and kind of make your own scenes. That's sort of what a visual identity is, right? So this word mark might just live on a letterhead, and that might be all that is necessary, or it might be part of a big design, and we'll hit it here, and this will all make sense. But for now, burn this in your head because we're going to keep going. This is the elevated and the weird part, but it doesn't give us just the stuff we need to actually type the memo here. So this is where we go back to that font exercise. The ampersand remains the same to give it the uplift. And this very good old-fashioned, the world's greatest font, stable Helvetica, the stalwart of typography, available in multiple weights, gives us the tradition and the raw usability that this thing needs to have in order to save the town of Nederland time and money when it comes time to create Facebook posts, right? So together, this is all very, Miranda paid I think it was a compliment maybe, where she said, well, what about all these fonts? This is really just one font. It's a good font, and it's just being used in a way in that mathematical 24 to 18 to 14 point or 11 point sizes that give it a designy feel, but in truth, you could literally just use it in PowerPoint, right? It's not it's a designer's font because it is so approachable. All right, Mac.
What's the font called again?
Which one? The
The
decorative
font.
one?
Yeah.
The decorative
I'm
one.
sorry, the font that Nederland is in. Starts with a P. I can't remember.
Potra.
Thanks.
Potra, and then good old Helvetica. All right, Mackenzie, tell us about the genius and the organic here.
So these are whimsies or boops, or honestly whatever you want to call them, because they're kind of just for you to apply to different aspects of the town. So I make handmade paper that is a combination of junk mail and like actual soil, and so there's soil in some of these little sheets of paper that I make that comes directly from the Nederland area, and I collage those in with like imagery that might be important for the town. So there's a good balance of like sustainable, kind of gritty, natural elements from the handmade paper that's overlaid with all these kind of urban, kind of funky, dare I say that word, but elements. So we kind of get these like really bright, kind of neon-y urban colors and imagery, and then it's incorporated into that natural, the rugged Nederland element. So it's like that integration you guys have with nature, but also highlighting very important things about the town and the people as well. So in the next slide it has the cat or the carousel, or like the cabins, things that are very unique for Nederland, but kind of can be used for whatever aspects you want them to be used for, like for the mayor or for town hall or parks and rec, stuff like that. So they're interchangeable, they can really be whatever you want. They're kind of balancing everything together. Did I miss anything, Beckett?
No, I think that's brilliant. I'm sitting here looking at them. I think, Mackenzie, keep me honest here, but the looking at this one as an example, all the stuff up top is pure organic. This is the paper mache, and then the orange is more of a man-made paper, right? A more
Yes.
process, and then the bottom is a sketch that we digitized. So each one of these kind of has, something that God made, something that people made, and something that AI made in them. But they're still remarkably human, right? Mackenzie had them out on the table and you can like sit and play with them and stuff. And then here, even though this feels like a lot of groups, there'll probably be 16 or 20 of these because we want to make sure that every sort of driving facet of Nederland has the opportunity to stick these on the back of a business card, right? I heard everybody talking about police and speeding and stuff, right? There should be one of these for police, for fire departments, for the ice skating rink, for all of these kind of clusters that go in to make Nederland run and be passionate and succeed. We want them to be reflected in one of these boops. And if we don't have a boop for whatever it is that y'all come at us with, we'll make another boop because they're designed to be made. All right. Color palette, an easy one. You saw that picture that ET took of the color palette exercise. All we did was we stole a whole bunch of like paint palette stuff from your hardware store up there, and we had people pick out a group of like 3 or 4 of them that they liked how they went together, and then tell us, and then they told us a memory that those were based off of, right? So we ended up with 30 of these, and the problem with this exercise is because everything was sort of in this curated color palette for the home, every single palette looked great. All color palettes look great when you do them by math, right? If it's a triad with a thing, they're all going to look really responsible. So we ended up with this massive thing of equally good choices. And the direction we took, bear with me, there were 3 kids who were particularly vocal in this. And the wonderful thing about these kids is their names aren't necessarily human names. They have a they're like Will, right? William, Will. It's a verb, and these colors he chose. It was his bike, right? That dark chocolate, I get, he said, was like the colors of the tires. The pink was where it said like Huffy because it was his sister's bike. The silver was this, and then the green was the color of the trees rushing by because Will had only learned to ride his bike for the first time about 2 weeks before we asked him to come up with a memory. So we, rather than break it on some kind of mathematical designer, pompous thing, we just kind of went with these 3 kids. Blue is blue, thank God there's blue in it. And then Misty is this very cool 8th grader who she's in 8th grade going on graduate school, the way that she talks about the world. And her color palette, sure enough, reflected sort of her sort of the word Misty, right? It was a little more subtle a little bit. So these are the color palettes we're putting forward. Of all the things here, though, these are and can totally evolve over the next 8 years that you all use this, as long as they're good and clean, and Peter will make them good and clean. So here we're bringing it all together. Natalie, I hope you know that you took the biggest pressure point. Have at us here.
Well, I really like this part of the presentation because it really shows a lot of what's called like versatility in how you can use this logo. In the process, the brand or the logo step back and look closer was brought up, and I really think that it suits our town really well, and it kind of suits the logo really well as well. It gives you the opportunity to literally step back and look closer in the pictures themselves. You can use them as like one picture that you have one scene zoomed in really closely and focused on one specific element, and then the next one zoomed out so that you see the entire picture. Or you can have them be 2 completely different pictures like we have in the example, but they kind of represent the same feel or the same look to kind of work with whatever that you're doing at the moment. Um, I think it suits Nederland really, really well too, because you kind of have to step back and look closer at Ned to kind of feel the true nature of this town, or the true heart of this town. Kind of why I fell in love with this town, because there's so many little elements that you just kind of have to look closer to find. But if you step back, it's still really beautiful.
Very nice, Natalie. We heard, thank you to everyone, Jesse calling you out. Thank you for the tagline. We got a lot of taglines. And one of the grim things about this world is when a whole bunch of things match, it's too obvious. So they're just like, naturally unique and stuff. It's really just a wonderful tagline. It's also what Herbalife was using for their MLM and things. So step back and look closer was the closest we could get to, we can't tell people to go away, right? We can't go with Nederland, we're full, right? But we wanted to honor that very real thing that Nederland isn't exactly throwing its doors open saying more the merrier, that the growth is possibly inevitable, but it needs to be sustainable and controlled. And by pairing the step back and look closer, it reminds people of where they sit in the world, right? That perspective can be driving up and seeing Nederland in front of you as you come out of the canyon, or it can be, sitting at BC Brews and looking at the weird stray cat wandering around. That perspective can be time. It can be a business now and then. That perspective can be technique and point of view. It can be a picture of a dog and a painting of that beautiful blue dog that's in the community center. It gives the opportunity to not have to just go with one big image from a mechanical standpoint. What's really great about that is suddenly, because the images are simply smaller and not expected to carry the poster, cell phone pictures, the historical photos that maybe aren't quite the same high quality, it opens up the door to really great use of imagery that doesn't have to be super highly produced, right? We've all been there and you have a great photo and it's pixelated. This solves that. From just the weirdest possible designer perspective, we've all taken binoculars and spun them around as kids. We put them on here and suddenly we're close to something. We flip them around and suddenly we're far away. And it felt like a superpower when we were Will's age. So that dichotomy of imagery, the step back and look closer, not only applies to that, but it applies to every element of this, to the little dots in the ampersand showing the color, to Mackenzie's amazing work with the tactile textures that in print, a lot of you got to see them. They just look so cool. They're almost like an optical illusion when they're in a digital format. So step back and look closer is what we're putting forward. Final step, you notice we have not talked about the logo mark yet, right? You remember Nike? Nike's a swoosh, right? The logo mark is sometimes the least important, most important thing on a brand. It's the mint on the pillow. It's the little horse on your polo shirt. It is generally not the first thing that is developed, but rather something that falls within the greater world of the visual identity, that complements it, encapsulates it, and hits the basic math of things that a logo mark have to do, like be recognizable and patentable and reflective. Sam, best of luck to you. Tell me when you need me to flip.
Yeah, you can go ahead and flip and people can start looking at it. So just want to say I'm honored to have the opportunity to present the potential logo to everybody. And it's what I love about this process is that it has been so inclusive of everybody getting to have their say and give input from the whole community. And in addition, the other thing that I love about the outcome here that we're looking at is the meaning and the layers that are involved with this logo. And that's what excites me the most. So I'll start with sort of what would be the obvious things, and then I'll go into a little bit more what I think we'd all consider sort of like meta out there discussion about how this can represent our community. The first really straightforward thing is that if we look at the far right version, where it says deconstructed, organic, and symbolic. That's the one that we've seen presented in context as we've gone through these sessions, and I think we'll see some more of that in a moment. I'm assuming, Beckett, is that right? And
yep, absolutely, Sam. Your next slide is just like the master with the word marks.
Okay,
I'll jump when it's
cool.
done.
Yeah, so let's focus on that right side of it at the moment, and the circle in the middle. If we deconstruct the layers, and meaning this is sort of the physical nature of it, the circle in the middle, yeah, you can do it this way, this is great. The circle in the middle represents Nederland, like that's the town, if we think about it that way. And then the top, I'll start with that one next, the top big circle is essentially the mountains and the physical space that's beyond Nederland. As we head up into the Indian Peaks Wilderness and the James Peak Wilderness and sort of everything that we get to look at every day. And then the bottom, what I love about this is you can't get to Nederland like you could fly in with a helicopter or something, but you can't get to Nederland without having to ascend up, right? So you have to go from a lower point to a higher point. And the most typical route that that is taken is Boulder Canyon. So that incline up that we see on the bottom represents the angle of Boulder Canyon, the average angle of the canyon, which I just love that. When I heard that, I just loved that meaning of it. And additionally, that bottom aspect of it also represents the idea of the space that we have in town, the reservoir and the natural landscape there. And so that's the physical thought process that we went through understanding with Beckett and the team. And then the sort of more meta out there kind of thought process that I love because it adds more meaning to this is the idea of duality. And so what we all know and experience in Nederland is that, we have so many days of sunshine in the year, and oftentimes we have wind or we have cold that goes with that. So we have this sort of grit and hardship along with the beauty in many of the ways and the ruggedness of it. And so the duality being the top and the bottom, above it and below in this particular visual of the icon of town being the center. And as you expand that, you can sort of take it, as meta as you'd like. I'll use that word because I think it's appropriate here. But essentially, for me, I love the fact that it really represents the biggest thing that stood out to me here, like after saying all that physical stuff, is the fact that you always have to ascend up to Nederland. Like we are at a higher point and you have to approach it. And having that be represented here along with the access that we have to the incredible wilderness and space that we do have is amazing. And then to have it just distilled down into this super cool set of shapes, to me, when I saw it, I really loved it. And then the other piece of this too, unrelated to the logo exactly, but this entire process that we got to be a part of and that we're all a part of at the moment, is the care that was given here by this team and the opportunity for us to all be stewards in the direction of Nederland's visual identity, which to me is just an incredible opportunity. How often do you get to be stewards of a visual identity of an incredible town? First time for me. And I think that's just something that I'm really grateful for. And I hope that we can just really take this and run with it in a way that everybody's excited about.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam, Natalie. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who has chimed in and will. Sam was very restrained in his meta. I'm going to go a little farther because I get emails, right? This looks like this. It looks like this. It reminds me of this. It's Sisyphean, right? It's this constant struggle of hope to push up. It's Atlas. It's Nederland carrying the great weight. On a literal level, yeah, the circle could be the sky or the moon. It can be God, if you want it to be. It can be, as Sam put so eloquently, everything else that's bigger than us. And then on the bottom, if you want to be literal, it's the reservoir. If you want to be a little more meta, it's the foundation. It's what holds us up, perched precariously between these two great forces and holding its own. I recognize that it's very symbolic. Like everything else in this presentation, we can change things, right? This is still a work session, but as we see it come together, I just want to acknowledge that it probably isn't what people were expecting. You know, as Billy wrote, it totally looks like a cairn, right? And cairns look like ducks. If you look at this painting behind me, it sort of looks like that, right? It looks like a spine. It's these organic, dynamic shapes that work together to create a fascinating thing. So here you can kind of see everything playing out, right? This is still not a PowerPoint slide. This is just all the elements laid out with radial symmetry. But you can start to see how each of these, when dragged around into memos, into posters, into bulletin boards, into wherever they go, they start to create a true visual language for Nederland beyond, you know, a funky word type and a slogan. Here's what it would look like in a magazine. Pardon the kind of the gauche Photoshop mock-ups here, but I do think it's helpful to see. You notice in this, these are two 10-minute treatments. On the left, this would be more of a an extroverted, designery thing that Peter was creating. It would be the cover of something or something. And then on the right, you would have more of your traditional memo and just your everyday document that goes into creating things. This slide that Natalie was showing, this will make just the greatest and easiest and most wonderful PowerPoint dividers and stuff. It's like a 3-click process that's immediately recognizable, but still allows for the creativity of the person creating it to send the message that they want.
Can I chime in on the PowerPoint slide?
Yeah, please, Vu.
So I was the communications director for what was then the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, is now 988. And as in that job, right, my duty was to communicate. Just so, like, there was such a variety of things that I would be communicating. One moment I might be talking to the crisis centers, like the 160 crisis centers across the country, about some kind of evaluation that we're doing. Another moment I might be talking about like the suicide deaths of a celebrity, right? And so the idea here of being able to pull, two pictures in and kind of like use that as a framework for whether it's a talk or a memo that I'm sending out, for using this actual design language as just that framework, that baseline for telling whatever the story that I needed to tell, would have been it would have been a godsend. I had a terrible, just like, header footer that we all have, right? So I think that when we talk about the pardon me, the creativity of it, all of the different things, there's so much that within these logos or this language that is left to the end user, that people get to play with it and get to make it what we need it to be, that's my 2 cents about it and what I love. And I'm gonna mute so I can cough.
Thank you, Vu. Thank you, everyone. Vu not only has COVID, but he's an hour ahead of us, so he's pulling through here for us. Thank you, Vu. Yeah, flexibility, usability, right? Larry was doing a good job, and Peter, I'll stay honest. This stuff, it can't be big design exercise, and it has to be 4-click activities to create consistent professional things that are appropriate for the tone that needs to be created. So here, very standard. This would just be a fire and safety thing, right? With our boop, with our logo, with our justified Helvetica text. I don't know if you want to bold important things or not. That's kind of up to you. With the word mark, very professional, very put together, and it would probably take 20 minutes to pull off once everything is into Figma. Just playing around. I dig the geometry of logos. It appeals to me. I'm not sure it actually matters to the world, but there's something really gratifying to me when pieces fit together. And everything here is the math, right? Nederland is the same width as this is high. Everything fits together in this non-repeating jigsaw puzzle on this imaginary tote bag. Here we've got Nederland written across the circle like it's the moon, which is probably not an application you'd use a lot, but I tell you, it looks really good on that little circle up on Facebook pages, not to have anything fussy up there, but just have that nice thing. And that is the presentation. Before we go to public comment, a couple of rules of engagement here. I said it bluntly, don't be mean, y'all. First, but what does mean mean? Seagulls, right? Seagulls are people and ideas that fly in and then pick something apart and take a crap on it and fly away, right? Try not to seagull. Just, don't be like, I don't like the color blue. Well, okay, I'll let blue know, right? So be productive. If you make a comment, be ready to own it. Number two, feedback versus insight. This is tricky. We use the term feedback loosely. What we're really looking for in this comment section are insight. We're looking for personal insight. Feedback generally comes from the whole or from something in a position of expertise. So we're getting feedback from all of you collectively, but on an individual level, you need to be focused on providing insight rather than feedback. I know that's obscure, but it'll come up in a moment. Careful with the word like. Use it, if you like something or you don't like something, but like isn't a very actionable thing. And in reacting to these, make sure that you're holding true to your personal aesthetics, but also thinking about the usability, why we made the choices that we did. I use like, we all use the word like, but if you find yourself using it a bunch, it becomes a little bit of a red flag that you maybe need to be more actionable in your insight. Respect the process and the input. I know that not everyone can be here, but I don't think there's a single choice that we made in a vacuum anywhere here. And if you come at something hard, it may be me defending something that the Godot team created. It may also be me defending something that Misty really wanted to see in there. And finally, it's okay to love things as they are. Confirmation. I know this is just like begging for positive feedback, and we are sort of, right? This is very far along. We're about ready to roll it out. This is our last throws before a couple of tweaks here or there. It's okay to confirm that Mackenzie's boops are freaking awesome, because they are, right? There's nothing else going on like that anyplace. Eric, you are a brave man, and you are first. And then with permission, Miranda and Peter, I'm going to kind of let you all facilitate this part because I don't really know what we're supposed to answer and what we're supposed to just kind of let go. Eric, go ahead.
Totally.
Well, first, thank you guys so much for this presentation and for the 101 class in design that preceded it. It was enlightening, and I'm grateful that you're providing us the context and the language with which to speak about this stuff, which I think is important. Mackenzie, they're so lovely. Thank you. The boops are really, really great.
Thank you so much. And they're partially Beckett too. I'll call it a collaboration.
Well, Beckett, thank you a little bit as well.
Thank you, Eric.
but I especially appreciate that they incorporate analog work in a way that isn't too fetishistic, right? Where we're using the analog, but at the same time, it could never be like this without the digital intervention, and I really appreciate that. Because just slapping, fetishy little analog stuff from times gone by on digital flyers doesn't necessarily speak to me, but this absolutely does. I do feel like they sometimes maybe don't stand out on some of the colors as nicely as they could, because they have that because of the dirt in them, they have that darkness, that kind of grit that it sort of like lacks the punch when they're on a bright white background, when they're on these more pastel muted colors, which I love the colors. The color schemes I think are great. It's just the way that they work with the boops wasn't as what's the word, striking, I think, as when they first appeared on the screen on a bright white background. So it might just be something to generally consider.
That's super valid, Eric. Thank you. That's exactly what we mean by actionable insight, and absolutely fully agree. Yeah.
And I'm really surprised by the logo mark, as I think I mean, this is not what I expected at all. I think it's very bold. I'm, so happy to hear Sam, who's also on our Parks board, talk about it so passionately. Yeah, and I love it on the bag as a repeated pattern. The one element that feels missing to me throughout, except for maybe the boops, is maybe the sharper edges of Nederland as a place, as a community, as a town, as a group of people. We're quite pointy up here in the Rocky Mountains as well, and everything is very softened. It feels softer than we are. And that's not to say I don't like it. I really, really love what you guys have done. I did not expect this. Genuinely blown away by it. Yeah, thank you guys. But those would be my initial. I'd have to think about it a lot more beyond that, but that would be my initial kind of feedback on what you've presented so far.
Excellent, Eric. Thank you.
I'll have more later, and I'll write you.
There's one thing I want to just touch on with the logo, Mark. Just kind of a broad point about it, but first of all, I love it. Like I mean, I love it. I love the background of it. Everyone's heard it now. I'm into it. I think it's really cool. Logos are a necessarily like trained thing, right? So the logo shows up and it says Nederland on it, and we're all very critical of it right now, and the first people who see it will probably be like, oh, Ned, all right, that's a thing. It's a aesthetically beautiful image. I think most people will think that, and very quickly it'll just be associated with Nederland. And looking at it out of that association, or for the first time as that association, it changes so quickly. Like the Nike logo, for instance, one of the most recognizable in the world. I don't even know if I like that, right? I don't know if it matters. I just think it's just Nike, right? And so it's a way to get something that's beautiful and recognizable that can just say Nederland very succinctly and in an image-based visual way that isn't spelling it out.
The other just immediate thought I have on the logo, Mark, sorry, just want to get it out while I remember, is just its verticality. It's very vertical, which I think sometimes is difficult to use when things are super vertical. If there are, and I'm not saying to change it. I'm just saying it out loud.
Oh, Eric,
and it's very
Beckett, I pass it to you for this one.
Yeah, we got one. We got a whole bunch. It's too big and square to like go on a letterhead and stuff. So there's a version that's just Nederland with the logo kind of off to the left and all kinds of things to make it fit into spaces. So excellent insight, and we're ahead of you, or you're ahead of us. Something.
Thanks.
Well, good. Our job is done here, everybody. Thank you for your time. Miranda,
So I think
almost.
actually,
We gotta go to public comment.
Yeah, and Becky, it's really Mayor Billy who's going to kind of coordinate this amongst the Board of Trustees. So if you're done with your presentation, I think it's best to kick it over to him, and he'll call on trustees and then open up public comment.
Yeah. Thank you, Miranda. Appreciate that Eric kind of kicked it off, and I think we could kind of stick with our usual format and go to clarifying questions if folks have questions that would fall into that category from the board right now, trustees.
I've got one, Beckett. Following up on Eric's question, it seems to me that you showed us a slide or two of how the logo would be used in different media and for different purposes. I think the point is valid that it is a very vertical logo, and I know you had something.
Yeah, Tom, I've got sheets of those. We're not. Why are we not showing that? I think I wanted to hear everybody's feedback, right? If you close your eyes and picture the word Nederland with the logo mark about the same height over to the left, That's what we had on there. But before we kind of dug too far into that very specific application of it, because it's probably only going to show up in like letterheads and stuff. Anything that's super long and skinny is where it'll go. I mean, we kind of wanted to hear things like, maybe a little bit more pointy, right? All that before we ended up with 97 variations of this thing floating around. Did I answer your question there, Tom? I feel like maybe I dodged.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I got to say though, when I saw the presentation of it in everything from brochures to letterheads and different things, I was more comfortable with it afterwards.
Cool.
Thanks, Tom. Other trustees, any clarifying questions or clarifying comments? I have one on the angle, and it was good to see Sam go through that whole like duality and then kind of the circle superimposed as part of the other circle, which was part of the non-circle shape. And but the 17 degrees and the angle. Can you explain that? Because when I just showed up on Google Maps, it actually kind of goes from southeast to northwest.
It's the angle if the base of Canyon to Nederland was a mile. That's actually the angle. It has nothing to do with reality whatsoever. It's just, if it was 1 mile in and 3,300 feet up or something, that was kind of the angle that came out. It's also possible we did the math wrong or something. But yeah, 17.7 was the magic number that the calculator spit out. The important thing there, though, is it's not 45 degrees. It's not 15 degrees. It's not 30 degrees.
What was the formula that got you
the slope? Answer, I think is what I'm hearing. The slope of the canyon, and I'm going to go look at the narrows to see what the slope is in the narrows. I bet we can get 17.
It's some combination of the number 5,400 and 8,400 and either a tangent, a sine, or a cosine thing in my little calculator. Spit out 17.7.
Right.
Well done.
Oh. Okay, yeah, because it's definitely
a specific angle. You could probably figure out how to get any one, right? By measuring that canyon. It's tricky to try to get like the number. And this one's pretty close, and it turns out to look good as well.
Yeah, it's just interesting when you look at it, a map, it's about that same angle. It just happens to run the other orientation. And I thought initially that's what it was when you had said it. Like but Boulder sits a bit north, so it's kind of tilts the other way.
Oh yeah,
look at a map. That's what I thought. It was kind of taken off. It's more of a it's off. It's 17 degrees off 90. So I was trying to figure that out, and then when I looked at the map, I'm like, well, it actually goes the other direction. And so I was trying to understand, because there are no roads that are 70% slope actually. That CDOT would design. So it's kind of
skillet,
like
but
some
lick
kind of
skillet
funky
or something.
That'd be the closest one, yeah. Yeah. So that's all. I just kind of didn't understand that number, and I guess I still don't. So it doesn't really matter because the angle is the angle, but for now I'm just going to stick with it. That was a clarifying question. That's all. I didn't understand how that.
I looked it up, and the steepest part of the canyon is 9.1 degrees.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely, for sure, absolutely played with the distance between the beginning of canyon and Nederland. I made that short, because in truth, it's probably like a 2-degree angle, which would look very uncomfortable on a logo. I am happy to firm up that design story if you all would like me to, but the core there is organic angle based on something that is not 45, 30, 15 degrees.
That's the easiest one to tell, and it's true.
Sure.
Are there any other clarifying questions from the board?
Just it's not a question, but just to me, I found it a little bit disturbing because it has it feels off balance, and it implies that we're off balance, and which is probably true.
He did just sit through a budget session, so he knows.
Right. Yeah.
I wouldn't use the word unbalanced, but I would go precarious.
Yeah, I like this. I like the precariously perched metaphor. But it's a good point, Tom. Well, like, yeah, I mean, it could, you know, also be seen as just that, yeah, that it's unsettling. But
Wait, sorry to
that's,
jump in. Beckett,
yeah.
didn't you say that the structure, if it was built, that the logo, if it was built as an actual structure, would be balanced and it would stand on its own?
Yeah, it's all it's all actually completely centered. It almost to the point of an optical illusion here, but yeah, this is you can see
Oh,
it,
because of where it sits.
right?
Except that things roll.
Yeah, this and this are all dead centered.
I see what you're saying. They're perfectly weighted.
brilliant.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mackenzie
So
had a good
somebody-
point about this earlier, where she was saying that it looks like you know, the people who do the super balanced rock the rock piles on the side of the creek and stuff like that. And to me,
Yeah,
like
the rock cairn, it's called.
yeah,
that's what
I do feel a you know, a good balance. There's gravity to it that makes it look, at least, or feel to me, yeah, not off kilter. Even though it is like it's all grounded and it feels there.
Yeah, it's like an unconventional kind of balance, right? Where it's balanced, you might at first think it's not, but you step back, you look closer, you're like, oh, that is balanced, in kind of a interesting way that feels dynamic. Like it might kind of like be able to, you know, be like a seal balancing a ball on its nose or something, you know? That's kind of I'm getting.
It is definitely a seal balancing ball on its
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Any other clarifying questions before we go to public comment?
Yeah, I'd go sideways to the group. How are people feeling about the fonts and the ampersand?
Well, are we in clarifying questions or do we want to?
Yeah, no, I definitely have plenty of things to say still, but I'm trying to just stick with our usual kind of
Go ahead.
technique. So any clarifying questions, Jesse, Eric, or Eric already did, but Jesse and Nicole?
No.
No.
Okay. Thank you. So with that, we'll go to public comment. As you all know, we're all virtual. There's no one in the room. So if you're online, you are it's time for public comment. Go ahead and raise your hand or just start talking. If you called in, you gotta hit *6.
And we'd like to hear from as many people as possible, so please speak
Yeah,
up.
it'd be awesome to hear from folks. Hi, Chris Larson. I see your hand. Go ahead.
Hi, it's actually Lindsay Danforth here.
Hi, Lindsay.
Chris and I are in the same room, but Lindsay here.
Hey, Lindsay. Go ahead.
Hi. So I appreciate all the hard work you guys have put into designing our new logo and everything. I think the one thing that I think might be a little bit off is the fact that it does resemble a cairn. And in recent years, cairns have a really negative connotation and that they're bad for the environment. And the National Park Service actually is encouraging people to knock them over, that they destroy habitats. And so I worry that us associating with a cairn is going to kind of take on that negative connotation that cairns currently have in the rock piles and everything. Those that's just my opinion on that.
Yeah, totally. So in this format, if somebody can answer, am I supposed to answer these, or is this like?
Yeah, so it's mostly a comment, but what we do, and I think we'll let you, as long as it seems like it's going a good way. We'll let you respond directly. Sometimes people just make a comment, and you kind of get a sense that that's all they wanted to do was make the comment. And other times, folks, maybe if you want to ask them clarifying questions, or if you want to,
Yeah.
Or good the dialogue with them, go with. I mean, I think with Lindsay, I think this would be good for you because this is an
Totally.
interesting point.
Two cairns, right? Cairns and yeah, they're ducks in Scotland. They're really only supposed to be above like snow line or something. We are supposed to knock them down. Same thing with stacking rocks in rivers and stuff is an issue here in Boulder. Now, personally, I don't think any of this is really going to end the world, but there are people that are passionate around it. It does look kind of like a cairn. And at one point it was stacked rocks and we moved it so that it wasn't that. I'm not sure that we were thinking about the controversy is a big word, but the discussion around cairns so much as we didn't want it to look like stacked rocks. So I hear you. Yeah. I mean, it's in the discussion. We hear it. Billy's kid said that it looked like a cairn. It does. Cairns are stacked objects. The designer in me wants to tell you in the nicest way possible that any shape you put in front of me, not only can I tell you that it looks like something, but I can probably tell you that it looks like something incredibly offensive and filthy. Right. So, it's part of it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I've totally heard though, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that, it's more about how the majority of the public interprets something rather than what we hope they interpret. And we're hopeful that they see balance and they see, strength in the rocks, but I'm unsure if other people are going to see cairns, and our Nederland residents are very into the environment, and also previous boards we've passed our environmental what was it? The rights of nature, and so we just want to be careful that we're not kind of sticking our nose up to that. That's all. Thanks.
Sure, heard you. Yeah.
Thanks, Lindsay.
I would say one thing real quick is that in the probably 200, I don't know the exact number, people we've talked to in town who have seen the logo and all this, it's almost never, the cairn didn't come up until pretty much today. So
sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's okay,
and it's all good, and it's good feedback, right? Like that, it's important. So far, the public, that hasn't been the reaction, just out of our experience with talking to many people.
Thanks, Jay. Any other public comments? I think I saw Luke Miller.
Yeah,
Go
thanks.
ahead and unmute yourself, Luke.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, just say who you are and your relationship to town where they live in town.
Yeah, I'm Luke Miller. I live in town. Yeah, I had two things. One, I forget who said there's sort of a lot of roundness and no sharp edges, which isn't true of I think our town and our culture. I don't know if there's a way to get a little mountain peak in the top or something, but the main thing that caught my attention was as that mark gets smaller, it really starts to lose its distinction. And I don't know if anybody's played with some colorways between those dots to make them a little more distinct as it gets smaller. And I don't know, maybe even like Colorado's, red, gold, and blue colors of Colorado maybe fits in there. I'm not sure.
Sorry, quick, genuine clarifying. You mean on the Nederland word mark?
No, the logo mark, just the circles.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah, thanks, Luke. No, that does make sense. So as it gets smaller, you kind of lose resolution and something to make it pop, whether it's color or something.
Yeah, it sort of looks like like two blobs kind of stuck together. But
Thank you. Any other comments, Luke? Anything else?
No, that was the only thing I had. I mean, I think it's a cool idea. I like it. But
thank you. What other?
Billy,
yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Dawn. I'm at home, and
because I don't have internet at home, I am just wondering if this presentation will be online visually tomorrow, where I can access it.
It will.
Okay, great, because I really am excited to see what Godot has put together. Thank you. That's all I needed to know.
It will it'll be uploaded to YouTube the moment that this meeting is over, actually.
Peter and Miranda, knowing that it'll go up on YouTube, would it make sense for me to make a copy of the deck available as well? None of this stuff is going to look good on a YouTube video.
Yes, please. So that way I can link to it.
Cool. I'll send it on. And whoever spoke, this must have been the strangest conversation without visuals to go with it. It must have just been word salad.
Yeah, because Don, yeah, there was a lot more slides shown than that were in the packet. So, yeah.
Well, I knew that was going to happen. I just didn't want to sit at the community center all night. So thank you.
Don't blame me. Thanks, Don. Do we have other comments? Public. Don't see any hands raised. Give another minute if you're talking. I'm not hearing you, so hit *6 or unmute. If not, go ahead and bring it back to the board.
You do have a
more
hand raised
discussion.
by DD.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Dee. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hey, this is Deb DeAndrea.
Yeah.
I think the font is pretty cool. I like the dots and the attention to the detail with the font. I can see the lines being changed in emphasis depending on various uses. Individual lines, not necessarily the whole letter. And when I first looked at the circles, whatever I forget the terminology that you use for that.
The mark.
The mark. You're good at, I thought Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. I was like, I just looked at that, and when it got smaller, it just reminded me of something that could like rock back and forth and stays upright.
Oh, that's cool.
It's super cool.
So that's all I wanted to share. Interesting mark. Still pondering over thoughts, but interesting mark. And I love the boobs.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you, Deb.
We
Mackenzie's
should
getting a
have
love
known that was
fest on the
Dee.
boobs.
I love the boobs.
The boobs were amazing. I mean, like I got to go there to the presentation and seeing, like, actually picking up the boobs and you know, like seeing at least a couple of them that were visible and just kind of seeing them in their own form, you know, not mixed with other media in an image. Yeah, they're pretty awesome. And the boobs are maybe my favorite part of the whole thing. Anyways, I started, but with that, is there any more public comments? Deb, your hand's still up. I assume you're giving us your comment, but you can chime in if you are not done. Otherwise, I think we'll bring it back to the board for more discussion and feedback / insights from the board.
Hi, Mayor Bailey. So
And
thanks
Nicole.
again, Godot team, for putting this together, and appreciate you being able to present to the board so that we can provide you any direction at this point before things get too far along, so you can, you know, get that the feel, because it's ultimately the board that has to make the decision. So some of my thoughts, I love the play between duality. I would say that this is definitely a community that has a lot of dual perspectives and things that are constantly pulling and tugging on each other. So I think that that's a wonderful thing and theme to rope into our overall identity. You know, with the Nederland, the lines, excuse me, the actual logo. I do like the dots and the lines. It gets really hard to read when it gets pretty small, or it gets hard to find that nuance. And yet it's weird enough, and funky enough, and yet grounded enough. And so I think you guys, you hit that. With the mark, because I'll kind of pile on my own thoughts, and thank you, Lindsay and Deb and Luke and everyone for commenting. The reason why the Nike logo, the swish works, or the marks, the swish works, is because you don't have to think too hard about it. It means movement. It means it looks like something fast. It could also, without you knowing that it came from the Nike victory, the goddess, or the god that was winged, you wouldn't have to know those things to know that it looks like movement or fastness, or that it looks like a check mark to mean just do it, just go do your things. There's not a whole lot of cerebralness that is required. I feel like this requires a lot of cerebralness. It requires a lot of explanation. It requires, and as Trustee Coombs-Ismail and others have noted, it doesn't quite captures a lot of softness. It doesn't quite capture the ruggedness. The fact that this is a very gritty community, some would say sharp, but it doesn't quite capture that. And so that is something that I guess I'm least liking, and I will use the word like, because I just don't feel that it has captured, and I appreciate all the thought and everything that's gone into it. It just, I'm afraid folks aren't going to get to it very quickly. And I want folks in this community to be able to look at that and be like, yes, that's us. We got it, without a whole lot of external explanation. Mackenzie, the boops, really freaking creative. Really appreciate the thought. I will echo Trustee Coombs-Ismail on the coloring, if there's some way to make it just pop more. And I don't know if that's just with the black and white parts as well. It is with the color pieces, making them a little bit more focused or bigger. I'll let you folks figure that out, but there is something about the popping of it that would make it really cool. And also making sure that we're capturing some of those other pieces. There wasn't any, I don't remember seeing any mining articulated in the boops, which is a big part of our history. Music is a big part of our history, right? So making sure that all those different facets are captured.
For sure, I have some mining and music ones in the works, so
okay,
that's
gotcha.
totally thought about. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's just a part of the pie of who we are. It's just a lot of difference. So so those are my thoughts.
Sam,
yeah, you could make one with pie.
Is it appropriate to poke
No.
Sam? No, is that not a thing?
Hold on, we got to get through our trustees.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were still in answering.
No.
Yeah, I think I'd rather, in this case, like if there's a question, because you, the Godot team, are gonna, even though we're done with clarifying questions, I think if we get, if Nicole gives you feedback, or the rest of us do, and there's something you want to respond to, that'd be fine.
Nah, you all can just go. We don't need to be troublemakers.
I mean, I will say, kind of from a troublemaker point of view, like you have picked the fair, there's a lot of creative folks on the board right now. So, I mean, and I really want Tanya to also give her feedback at some point. She's not here tonight. She's an artist for a living. And, but I think, hopefully you'll get and hear some good creative, insights. But yes, thanks, Nicole. Jesse, Tom, Eric, what else would you like to say?
I'll go first, Jesse. I have to agree with Nicole that I think it's a little too clever. That if anything that isn't immediately apparent, I think takes too long. But I'll also say that I'm not a design professional. There's nothing I'm less qualified to do than this. And so I'm listening because I'm older. I have a completely different set of tastes, and I look forward to being proven wrong and getting lots of high fives that we did the right thing. So I'll speak up in areas that I've got some expertise and fade back where I don't.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Jesse and Eric, you have more on your mind?
I'm not sure quite how I feel about it. I'm open to, it growing on me and kind of training to it. I guess it does resemble a rock heron to me, so I think there's potential kind of misinterpretation there, or some potential fallout there with kind of the way Karens got a little bit of a bad rap right now. I do love the rock stacks in general, and I kind of like Karens too, but I understand they're not popular right now. But yeah, I mean, I think I could learn to love it, but it's a little, it's quite a change. It's abrupt for me in terms of where we are at today, and then thinking of going to this. I was just reviewing our existing town logo, and our existing town logo is, I love the boops, by the way, and I do like, the modernization of the design move, just the movement towards a modernization of our look and our design. But yeah, I think, I kind of appreciate the comments. I agree with most of the comments that have been made thus far, and it's yeah, I'm not quite sure what to make of it. And like I said, I think it could grow on me, but I also feel like it's a little bit of a leap conceptually, to represent our town. Like our existing logo is very plain and very simple and very representative of a mountain town, or a town set in the mountains. And I think that does something for us to just represent the town and where it sits in the land, in a beautiful mountain town. And I don't know if just modernizing our existing logo, kind of giving it a modern touch up would be a possibility at this point. It feels like a lot of work has gone into this, and there's I guess I'm a little, maybe this is a clarifying question, but I'm just curious where we're at in the process. Like, is this like we're looking at 99% done at this point, or are we talking about just 1% changes at this point, or where are we at in the process right now?
Well, I can state that I deliberately asked for a pause to be able to present to us, the board, and offer feedback and direction, because I didn't want it to get to 100%.
Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, I know my board. I know you guys. And so I didn't want it to be 100% and then you guys be like, what the hell? So that's where we're at. So, what I think it's asking for some tweaks potentially here and there. And as Beckett has said, things are changeable.
I mean, to me, it looks like modern art, and I feel like I can appreciate modern art. It's probably not my favorite genre as a, in general, but I guess I would like it to kind of just have a more, I don't know what the right word is, but a more
More
plain,
like grounding or like just
yeah, a plain representation of what we're actually, a town in the mountains, a small rugged mountain town, I guess, is in Colorado. It's yeah, for me, it's just something I would have to really get used to. It's not there for me right now.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse.
I'm curious about other board members' feelings about some of the other components, just because we've focused on the logo mark a lot, which I think is natural and predictable by the team who put this together. But yeah, I'm curious.
Can you back up to that last that one? Yeah. Can you make that was bigger here? You just had an image, Beckett, that showed that slide kind of at a bigger scale so we could see all those 5 images kind of up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sort of feeling pretty I'm feeling pretty comfortable with the ampersand. I'm really kind of fascinated by the step back and look closer tag. I don't know how you guys feel about step back and look closer. I'm not super huge on the brackets around it. They feel fiddly to me, but I feel like we're a little bit more straightforward than that. If we're going to tell someone to step back and look closer, we're going to tell them that. We're not going to tell them in brackets.
We're going to put an exclamation point after
it. Yeah. We're just going to say it and walk on. But yeah, I wonder what y'all think about the tag, the ampersand. I know we all love the boops, but also this kind of like dual image concept where Peter can just like drag in 2 pictures that are representative of the subject matter of a meeting and present them in this way each time, he's producing some flyers or something.
So I can say I actually have thoughts on all of them. To the boops, I like putting my hands on them and really just seeing them in form. And I love like that fire and safety one. To me, that has nailed it color wise and everything because it's smoky, it's burnt, it looks kind of desolated, like it's been burned, but then they have the smoky image on the bottom and then the red color. So the boops to me work, and I do agree though with some of the other images as we go, like playing some color, however you do it, throwing some color back onto those images because the boops in general are kind of muted and are kind of earth tony, which I like because that brings in some of that grit because it's actual dirt, but you could play with the colors. So I agree with that feedback. Like at times, not so much with fire and safety, but some of the other ones throwing in more color, I think would be make them stronger. I think I personally quite like the font you landed on. I like, the lines with the, it is more modern. I wouldn't have picked it, but as I look at it, I like it. And I like the little dots that kind of mix into the middle of the straight lines or kind of break in the ends of the straight lines and have different colors. It will get lost as it gets smaller, but I like that. I think the ampersand, as a contrast, I remember there was one you showed us when I was at the meeting at the community center where it was a word in boldface and then ampersand and then another word in boldface. And it just kind of was faded because it was so, like it looked almost like a soft design in between. It doesn't even look like an ampersand. So that's my only feedback is it seems like it kind of gets lost when you go boldface on either side. But I really like the shapes of it. Step back and look closer. It's taken me a while. Like initially, I just kind of like Jesse. I really had to think on this whole thing for a while after I went to the community center. Met with you guys, but step back and look closer. I think I do ultimately like the words, the slogan. I agree that the parentheses are unnecessary. And then duality, like the binocular view thing that Natalie showed, and then I like that because different things can be plugged into it. It could be horizontal, or it can be diagonal, or even vertical. You can play with the angles. I think I've kind of gotten around the horn on most things. I mean, for me, the mark is where it just I think it's got good some good things going for it with regards to, I kind of like the precariously perched thing. I don't find that off-putting. I mean, the reality is when you live on the wildland urban interface, we are precariously perched when it comes to wildfire and wind, and I think that's kind of just a reality. And then all the things that are happening coming down the pike here in the next year or years, also plays into that precariously perched. So I do like kind of that. I kind of like the vertical in some ways. I like the vertical mark more than the horizontal, but when you presented it to us, it was also horizontal, and I think even diagonal. And so I kind of like that part of it. And the rock cairn to me doesn't quite have the environmental stuff going on, and I am an environmentalist, but I didn't even know that was a thing. But the image itself, I think, just needs it doesn't seem to fit. Like Jesse said, it's kind of a jump from kind of a boring old plain, Nederland thing to something modernistic, and that may actually turn off people who are freaking out about Nederland changing and growing. And I think, but I think it's a good basis. Like initially, I've been trying to play with that bottom shape, looks like a D, and I kind of turned that shade upside down and turned the E, a little middle circle, into an E, and I was trying to figure out how to make the circle on top into an N and do NED, which I know, Beckett, you would hate, but it was just an idea. But then I start thinking maybe there's like, pieces of mining machinery that are round, like a gear or a cog, and then there's pieces of instruments like a guitar or something that are shaped too, that you could bring in shapes that are actually images of things that are really kind of real to Nederland, that they would get lost as they got small. That's the only thing. But I'm just kind of playing with that idea as Jesse was talking, like maybe certain images could replace, they could even be similarly shaped, but they could kind of replace those circle and, partial circle, cut off circle shapes, but be more kind of like, emblematic or symbolic of mining or music or other things about Ned. Those are the only kind of ideas that are coming to me now if we were going to build on it. I do like the vertical orientation generally. I think the horizontal is also good. I think when you we talked about, I think Chris Kelly said at that meeting, like if you could go, if you went vertical too, sometimes you could go vertical with the letters and come down with the word Nederland, like on a letterhead or certain kind of a paper or something, certain kind of presentation where just tightening up an image instead of making it look like a T with a word name coming across, you go vertical next to it. I like that idea. But I also, when it does go across and goes from that black letters on a white field to white letters on a black field to black letters on a white field, I really like that a lot too. So though the circle itself is kind of, though the circle itself to me is just not quite wowing me. It's not quite enough alone, unless that circle starts to symbolize or be a shape of, be a symbol of something else. The way it goes across the moon, the way it goes across it and changes. I love that. Like, to me, that's kind of pretty strong. So that's my kind of general feedback at the moment. And I think for sharp edges, like Eric and Luke talked about, like whether it's, I was kind of playing with that top circle to turn it into some kind of N, for Nederland, NED, and, sharpen it up. But, another thing is just, I don't know. The sharp edges might have to come out in a way through other images of music and mining and et cetera. Yeah.
Can I jump in here? It feels really weird. Like I'm sitting on a good solution, and I don't want to
Sure.
make everyone just say the same thing over and over.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think we should add in sharp elements to the logo, make it a little more literal, like a mountain. And it seems like we're solving a lot of the problems there. It's when we talked about this internally, and I shared some with Miranda, a couple of foundation points. One, a logo doesn't have to be anything. A lot of the brands we like just have a shape and there's some kind of a story behind it. So, if people don't get it, like maybe there's nothing to get. But for those that do want to solve the puzzle, if they're sitting there and staring at it and thinking about it, we want them to be able to get there. We want them to be able to solve that escape room without Sam or me saying, yeah, the circle in the middle is Ned, the top is the moon, the bottom is the res, right? We want them to get there. So by maybe giving a little bit of a point, you can do that. Billy, to the music and the stuff, those are the boops, right? The things that reflect the music and the carousel and the mining and things. Those are kind of what the boops are for. To put all those on a logo, you'd end up with like this weird medieval seal thing that would only work on a 4-foot application, right? So here you not only hear you, but had the thought, and that is where the boops came from, because we couldn't put 97 things sticking off of the logo.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Totally. I mean, it would get too busy, and I think as it got small, you'd lose that detail. But just presently, that circle on the non-circle just isn't there yet. Is where I'm at with it. And that's not, I'm not trying to be a seagull here. I was trying to give you some ideas, like ways to play with those shapes, because I do like the funky asymmetry, off balance way it balances, and I do like the precariously perched, and I personally like the rock cairn thing, but those three shapes at the moment just aren't landing, and I do think if it's just complicated for us to land on, just not, it kind of needs to land. I think Tom said it needs to land easily for folks, because people will, just kind of lay out the landscape. People are going to be critical of this. You spent this many $1,000s and blah blah blah, and and I'm not trying to. I love the work you've done, but I think it needs to be something that people
Identify with,
kind of without brain damage. And I'm trying to be super, I love this and I love so many aspects of it, but that mark is the one thing.
To answer your question, Eric, the tagline, step back and look closer. It's, I can get there with the duality thing, and the thing, I like the duality piece. Step back and look closer. I can get there. I don't have any other better suggestion. I don't know if it fully captures, but I can get there. I can get there if I sit with it long enough. And like I had mentioned, and I'll just bring back Deb's comment that she had mentioned earlier, with the actual lettering, the actual logo, it might be helpful to maybe make some of those lines gray, just so that it doesn't, so that you can follow the lines, so that you can see the lines, and you can see that there's some, supportive lines, but that the two lines don't necessarily conflict with each other. And so that might be an option to play with. But yeah, I'll just come back to the actual mark is it's difficult to wrap around, just like Mayor Billy was saying. And I think I've commented on all the parts.
Did you guys, I'm not sure if everyone commented on all the parts. I think everyone commented on the mark, but the other folks feel like you've addressed the other images and ideas.
Mayor Billy, do you need to extend the meeting?
Oh shit. Ah, damn it, really? Yes. Yes, I make a motion to extend the meeting. Oof. I don't really know how long it's gonna take for, I'll say 10:30.
Second.
Thank you. Macy?
Trustee Severs,
No.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hold.
We're going for 15 minutes.
I said
10:30.
10:30 just so we wouldn't have to break again. Hopefully we'll be done 10:15. I just, I'm
That
not
would be
sure.
the goal, is 10:15, Tom.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with shooting
Okay,
for that.
I'll agree. Yes.
Okay. Mayor Billy
Yes.
and Trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
I just
thanks for
really
that
think it's
reminder.
important that we all say something about each element here. Otherwise, we're not giving any sense of how to proceed to the folks who need to proceed with this.
I agree.
So who's up? Tom?
We're kind of talking about the lettering, the font, the ampersand, the, the two circles with the images and mountains in them, the duality.
And the
Step back
words,
and look
the
closer.
tagline.
Step back and look closer.
Yeah.
And the mark.
Yeah, there's not I don't have anything to add beyond what my colleagues have. I think, and I think Beckett got it from the feedback I heard, so I've got nothing more to say.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Jesse, do you want to talk about some of those other elements?
I love the boops. The tagline, I can live with it. I can't think of a better one. I liked the one that we all laughed about at the bar when we were kind of over the meeting and we had some beers and we said Nederland, Colorado, get out.
Yeah, that's making it into the documentary, Jesse, for sure.
I think Ward already stole that one, so we can't.
Yeah,
steal that
Ward
from
has that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I like it though.
I agree with Eric of drop the brackets. I like the font on Nederland, and yeah, the ampersand is cool. Looks like a trail, and the two circles with the three circles, the one in the middle, I think is cool. I like it. So yeah, everything, and I'm happy with the fonts. I'm good with everything. I feel that I'd like to just see some more work done on the mark, I suppose, kind of trying to, just keep working it a little bit.
And to clarify, when you said you like the two circles with the dot in the middle, it's not this. You liked like the PowerPoint slide example.
The duality slide.
Yeah.
This is what you liked.
This, yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Thanks for clarifying. All right. I guess Eric, are you last?
Yeah, I mean, step back and look closer. I was pretty surprised by it. I mean, it makes you think, but it's also not too complicated. Step back being the first two words, I think, is pretty close to get out. But then look closer, I guess, is a bit of an invitation, but in the sense that we're asking you to pay attention. So I get it. I like it. I think it works. I do like the ViewMaster. The ViewMaster is cool. It's a piece of technology we still seemingly can't figure out how to do better than when it comes to headsets. So I'm into this ViewMaster setup. The ampersand looks like to me it looks like the highway coming into town and Bridge Street crossing it and then going up to the community center. So I think that's pretty nice that it has that kind of map like feeling, and then the rest of the word mark mimics that, which I think is it needs to, and it makes sense. I do agree it feels a little thin sometimes. Like it does sometimes, the word mark feels thin at certain sizes and in certain contexts. almost like it's evaporating a bit. And yeah, I think I've said my piece on the boops and on the colors and on the logo mark.
Did you have any ideas for that evaporation look, or like something to remedy it?
I mean, almost like if the font was scaled down, that it would embolden somehow without encroaching on the distinction between the lines. I don't know. It feels like it needs to be bold in some contexts, but I don't know how it does that.
Yeah.
You mean the word Nederland specifically?
Yeah.
You mean the font? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the Potra or whatever the font is called. And I love the little color dots. I do wish that they could be retained at smaller scales, but obviously not everything is possible. It's just physical reality to deal with. Yeah. Just, that I really like the logo mark. I really like it. I'm also not sure, like the rest of the folks here, that it is the right one for the town in its current iteration. But I do really appreciate it and the ideas behind it. And I agree that really the first thing you see, at least the first thing I see, is the shapes, and then I have to put them together in my mind to make them mean something. And I wish that the first thing was an idea. Like I wish that the first thing that hit me was precarity, for instance. Like that I just thought precarity first and then started looking at the shapes of precarity. It doesn't have to be or foundation or in betweenness. Like if that was my first reaction, I think I'd like it more. But my first reaction is it's three shapes, and then I have to like put them together in my brain to figure out what they mean. And that's probably where people are having some trouble. I mean, I'm personally not that interested in it being too representative. And I understand why that would be appealing to maybe more people, for it to be like a more representative kind of image of something that exists in the town of Nederland. I'm not really interested in it being that. But
And I would say I'm probably in between. I would be like something that pulls our history forward in some way, but then is kind of pulling it into that modernization. So it's not too modern, but it's the reference, it's the historical reference to the thing, and it's pulling us forward. I'd say I'm sort of somewhere in the middle.
Can I say something? I said I didn't have anything to say, but something
definitely.
just jumps out at me when I look at this image now. Anybody who's ever worked on an engine, this looks like a camshaft that spins and makes the pistons turn.
Yeah.
And the camshaft is right at the center, and that gives us our mining tie-in.
Yeah, that's the kind of image thinking that I was talking about with like mining. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like the center, literally the center of the engine. And if you're thinking about peak to peak region, we could make that claim. But it didn't dawn on me at first till I saw it in context just now, and it just jumped.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. Like, I don't necessarily want to take my initial response. Well, I guess I want it to be taken with a grain of salt, because I think that a lot of really good work has been done here, and it's something that I could learn to love. Is kind of part of what I was saying as well, but I'm not there yet. But I might be. I might be sad to see it go at this point. So,
But you're kind of an abstract thinker, and you're not there yet. You're like
No.
you're having a hard time getting there. What about concrete people? I mean, I just think it's going to be a farther climb for them.
Yeah.
I like what you were saying, Billy, as far as like it almost it looks like it could be Marion Reynolds. Like if we could take some of the old mining equipment and
Yes.
weld it together, it would
Yes.
turn into one of Marion Reynolds' pieces of art.
That's a great freaking idea.
So, and then, you know, it's almost like if we could make a statue of it in front of the town hall with some old mining equipment, and then it would work, you know, almost, you know what I mean? Then it would just be the simplified version, the flattened version of that, you know, perhaps. I don't know. Brainstorming here. I know that's not what well, I don't know.
Well,
I think
That
that's a really
that
nice
is what
idea,
we're here
Jason.
to do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we should think about
a
it.
sculpture
Exactly.
would be sick, right? It'd be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Well, I don't know if you guys have looked, or Beckett, have you seen Marion Reynolds art? There's in front of the diner bar. I think there's some, and then there's the house over in Old Town that has a bunch of it. I think there's maybe a piece or two at the town hall. Can't remember. There's
We'll certainly take a look. I know ET went on a bit of an art tour.
You can go into Old Town to the house, you know.
Yeah, I used to live in it for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
My
right.
house has his work in it. So it's a
Texas.
it's very symbolic.
It sure does, Nicole. You wanna?
We'll get to that at a later show. That's a later show.
But I really don't want to lose that Sisyphean component. Like, I really like that. I really like the struggle.
What is Sisyphean?
What's Sisyphean?
You know, Sisyphus is cursed to roll the boulder up the hill in Greek mythology, and as soon as he gets it up and rolls back down, he's got to do it again. Like, I do really like that sort of you know, that feeling of the constant struggle towards something that you never reach. Like, I feel like that's what Nederland. It's a great way to describe our community, I think. And so I don't want to lose that concept in whatever comes out next. I really want to see that stay in there.
That's why I think some of those angles, you know, if we take if we say an image or something that's like a camshaft, or, you know, something that's more like mechanical, you know, / musical, whatever, but like it still has that kind of, you know, those shapes to a degree, but they're you know, they're kind of, you know, that pushing uphill is pretty shown by those three images, shapes in that orientation. But, you know, if we start talking to, I mean, certain, you know, a bunch of people in town, oh, it's about Sisyphus, and they're gonna like look at you like you're crazy. You know?
Right, but
Well, I probably am a little crazy, Billy. So that's all right.
You
If
are
they look
crazy,
at me.
but then they're gonna say, I hate it. You spend how much on that?
But that's where you can meld in some of the cerebral stuff. Again, let's go back to the Nike. Unless you knew that there was the Roman, you know, reference to the god and that was the wing, you would otherwise look at it and say, oh, well, it's movement, it's fast. It means, you know, I'll get my kicks on, you know. So it should appeal to both faculties, the emotional response as well as the cerebral. And so going back to this conversation of, you know, the metal work, the sculpture, the gears, the one thing I would also say is not to lose some of the softness. We have a lot of trees, water, you know, this is we, you know, I don't know if this is considered soft, but we've got a lot of culture that has been about, you know, the earth and the moon and, you know, the hippie culture and whatnot. And so that shouldn't be left out as well, to swing and compensate all the way to this mechanical, but this was also a part of our culture. And so if there's a way to encompass both, the duality, again, coming back to that duality thing.
Yeah, I don't think any of us want to lose the moon.
What's that?
I don't think we want to lose the moon necessarily.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Sorry, go, Tom.
Do you see Mud Lake above and the reservoir below?
Right now, no, I can't see any of it. I see circles.
Hey, y'all, I first thank you. This is great, right? This is exactly what we meant. It's specific. You know, obviously you're hearing people say two things, so it's not as easy as do this and that. I want to ask, where's a thought exercise? Jesse, I'm hearing you loud and clear on I'm not feeling it yet, right? Like that kind of thinking and talking about the puzzle of it. First, as a joke, let me tell you, if we put the Nike logo up here right now and it went through this process, people would be saying the same thing. Just, we're critics in this. So, nobody knew that it was winged victory until we heard that story. But part of the cognitive dissonance I'm hearing is twofold. One, does it have to be a puzzle, or is, Moon Nederland Reservoir, is that literal? There's obviously more there. So I'm wondering if some of the like not solving the puzzle of it is intentional, right? I mean, I made this thing, and I cannot tell you for sure if that is Moon Town Ned, or if it's Sky Ned, the world below it. I don't know, and I recognize that makes people really uncomfortable. But that may be some of the cognitive dissonance. When I was talking to Sam, I said maybe the circle is God. It's that organic shape. With all that said, I'm hearing you on the sharpness and bringing in some kind of literal thing. But so compliments, and be aware that maybe we've created a cognitive dissonance intentionally here that we need to think about.
Yeah, but I think you need to hear some of our feedback. I mean, you are creating cognitive dissonance, but I think, I want people to be angry about this, frankly.
I'm not so worried about that, Billy. I mean, I don't think we can be worried about that so much, but
no, I agree, but it's probably good that we take that into consideration, because it matters what people think about it. It's their money we're spending. And so, I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm just pointing out that if we're having a hard time wrapping our heads around it, some of us are more abstract thinkers. How's it gonna roll out?
Good point.
Yep.
We missed our 15-minute mark, but let's finish up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's after midnight, Billy.
It is. Kids are sound asleep. So I don't know, really, Beckett, how is this landing for you? And I know it's.
I meant what I said. It's super valuable. Thank you.
Another thing.
Good.
And I know that whenever I present to a client, I make things just bad enough that there's plenty of feedback to incorporate, so that the next time it feels like they really had some input.
Yeah,
So
we don't do
I
that,
hope-
Eric. We're laying it out with an open mind. I'm 48 years old. I've done this my whole life, and I refuse to have a career of compromise. That whole, here are three options. You do one crap, one medium, and one that you want your client to choose, is the most disrespectful thing you can do to your client. I mean, it's a horrible old school. Like you can't play that designer game of here's a bad one, here's a good one, here's a safe one. And, nobody wants to spend their $25,000 in this many hours of their life playing that. Let me just manipulate them.
We sure don't. It's obvious that you guys put so much thought into this and so much energy, and really engaged with the community in a meaningful way. And yeah, I'm thankful for that.
So regarding that whole thing of, giving someone crappy one, a medium one, I don't think that's at all what we want. But I am curious to know the board's sort of feel on maybe getting a couple of versions, or are we just asking for one version to come to us? I'm not really hip on the whole idea of medium, high, low quality. But would like to know, because it seems like this right here, this mark is the most contentious, or something that we definitely, I'm hearing we want it changed. We want it altered, but would like to get kind of the board's feeling on the direction to give the Godot team on how to move forward with that.
Can I just super quick just jump in though? You know, here's I think something to be mindful of is $25,000 was a stretch in and of itself for what we're asking for, and we don't have a ton left. So I want to be really mindful that I think as staff, the ask would be, let's kind of keep tweaking and working on what's here versus bringing multiple options, just because I want to be very respectful that we have a design team who is doing incredible work for us, probably, and I know at a very discounted rate, but we're coming towards the end of this grant, and I'm just not sure. I'm a little concerned about time, finances, capacity, all of the things. So I would love to encourage the board, if you're comfortable, to continue to give recommendations off of this, not asking for any sort of like from scratch redesign.
Yeah, I personally, no, that's thanks, because yeah, I mean, I agree. I think these guys have probably been losing money on us now, but it's like, that's where I think this image has a lot of potential. Like it's a great foundation, even though I wouldn't build a house that looks like that. But it's like, I would almost say, take that mark and give us, if you can hear the feedback we're given, give us 2 or 3 images of that, 2 or 3 versions of that mark, and preferably not good, better, best, but 3 that you like, and then, or 2, whatever, and come back. Because I think that's the only thing. Like, I think we're, in general, great with the boops, good with the ampersand, and the step back and look closer. People are warming up to it, and the most of us like the duality or the ViewMaster. It's and the font even. It's really just the mark.
Well, intentionally speaking out of Robert's Rules of Order, if everybody is 95% good with everything except the boop, let's just do some variations of the boop.
Except
I'm sorry, not the boop, the mark, the visual mark. I mean, we can iterate around that a little bit, and rather than think of it as 2 that I like, if we as a team reach a point where there are 2 valid paths, we'll present those. I also want to throw in here, Trustee Sterling, sorry, the formalities are tough for me. Trustee Sterling mentioned bringing this to the board. I want to put a layer of context there. Sunshine laws. In a different world, we would have done a work session with the board as one of the groups. So I just want to put out there that there is a mechanical reason that the BOT wasn't sitting down with us for 2 hours twice. We couldn't do it without the public.
This is perfect. We've had no time, so this is perfect.
Yeah, this is why we asked for it now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really want to see 2 or 3, or if they're not, just for the sake of seeing 2 or 3.
Rather see 2 best.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that the process by which this was created, the story behind it, and the story we can tell about it going forward is more important than what it looks like at the end of the day anyway. And so I think you guys have nailed that. And I think we can tell that story about it one way or the other. So I would just like to see something that you really stand by, taking this one last round of feedback into consideration, this one last round of engagement, this one last bit of research. That is this conversation this evening.
Cool. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks for all the work you have done. And it's amazing how much brought together people and how many meetings you've had with so many people. And yeah, we want to land on something that some welder will be proud to weld. In the town hall here. Do you need anything else, Beckett?
No, y'all. I appreciate your time, and I think everyone realizes that we're talking about abstract things and specific things. But I've got a killer list working in the sharpness. Working in the sharpness, bringing a little more grit, making it slightly more literal. If I'm kind of interpreting that in shorthand, like I heard this, and like it's going to always be one or the other, but enough of a hint to let people solve it. And as we go through this process in the next 3 or 4 days, we'll try to get to that line and see, and if 2 options come out of that line, we'll put them both forward. Or this is a digital identity, right? So if there's a second option that is fringe or something, or who knows? Maybe there's like a coat of arms for Nederland as well as the logo, right? Maybe there's something like that. There does get to a point where you don't actually have to throw something away. Like say that there was like a coat of arms. Say we did in addition to this logo, we did like a more literal thing with a carousel and a mining thing and a music and all that kind of thing. Say that was an option. That could still go in the library someplace, right? It's not like we have to burn the objects after they're done. So I think we have more than enough actionable insight here to bring this home in a way that is invincible.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. This is Vu. Sorry for not being on camera. I want to say I loved your responses. I loved hearing, oh, maybe it's a camshaft, like, you know, hearing these different things, and I think that's super useful for us to take back and bang on a bit. So and maybe it's the moon. I think it's all great.
Thanks, Vu.
I don't think, Nicole, I guess I kind of want to just counterpoint something you said earlier that, you know, that we want it to change. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. Like, I think we all gave our feedback, but at the end of the day, it's the artist, I think, needs to just put it forward and put it forward with conviction, like Eric said, and you know, maybe no changes. You know, maybe this is all just our digesting it. We spoke, we sort of shared our impressions and our reactions and, you know, what occurred to us. But at the end of the day, like, you know, Beckett, if you and your team just, you know, want to stick with this, I think that there's a case to be made there too. Stimulated a good conversation, and you know, if you feel inspired after this conversation to reiterate and to go and to tweak on it a little bit, then yeah, by all means. But I think, you know, this is your art, and we've hired you to do this, and I guess I don't want the integrity of your work to be compromised by us telling you to change it. I don't want us to be the artist, so to speak, and or for this project to suffer from groupthink, where we're trying to make everybody happy or trying to make everybody in this meeting happy either. So I want you to feel a certain degree of license to you know,
Keep it.
shove it down.
Yeah,
Yes.
Jesse, I appreciate that. I genuinely have been inspired. We have all genuinely been inspired by things
Okay.
today. There's actionable stuff.
Yeah.
What I can't guarantee are like massive changes, right? When we talk about it
Sure.
being spiky, maybe it's just a matter of having a little thing that maybe is a mountain and maybe is an arrow pointing north, right? I mean, it could be subtle things like that that kind of nudge the recognition just enough. Or it may be radically different, but I appreciate the lift. We're on a group text. Jesse and Jay and Mackenzie just sent some profanities about Jesse blank. Right? So you have their love as well.
And I appreciate
Okay.
that, but like we're paying for the art, so I do want you to hear our feedback, and your most critical artist, Tanya, is not here tonight, and she will be weighing in at some point. So she might be a big seagull. So we want to get it to a place where she won't be. That's just my thoughts on that. Anything else before we go to? Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
2 minutes.
2-minute warning.
Yeah, exactly. We need to kind of open it up for non-public comment, non-agenda items, which I don't expect, but we have to do that. So thank you, Beckett. Thank you, Godot, everybody. We appreciate your time.
Thank you all.
Thank
All
you
of
so
you.
much, all.
And Beckett, you're past your bedtime.
My alarm's going to go off pretty soon.
Okay.
Thanks, all.
Thanks, everyone. And with that, is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Great. Hearing none, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion
Or
Move to adjourn.
Other business, Okay. Hearing that, looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Eric, second, and Macy?
Mayor Billy,
Yes. Yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahone,
Yes.
Trustee Severs,
No.
I love it.
Listen, you.
okay.
Keep the
And
meeting
Trustee
going. It's gonna be here
Kim
alone for a
Smile.
while.
Trustee Kim says
Yes.
smile.
Yes,
Okay.
I said yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
The meeting is adjourned at 10:31 p.m.
Ah,
Good night,
10:30.
everybody. Thank you.
I wish it was 10:30.
Good
All
night,
right,
everybody.
good night.
Thank you.
12:30 where we are. See you guys. Thanks.